Sports leader 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Gene's a big timer, a social misfit. Clueless to the title of the biggest bus gag hits. Chuck Muncie's goons have the last say. So thanks for your time, Mr. Mayo. Danger likes his cold ones and he likes his bears. But this is Rochester, cute Francesa.
Oh, who cares?
He's critical of Sean, he's critical of Alan. Of course he married Sandy, cause she's Italian. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
For a lot of people, Tuesday is their least favorite day of the week. In the sports bar, we buck that trend. Tuesday is our favorite day. We got so much going on in the sports bar on a Tuesday.
Tuesday, it's like now, all right, we close the book on week 7. We look ahead to week 8. We have the best guests, all right, that join us every Tuesday. National guests, Bills reporter Matt Perino. And takes here, Danger. And I'm rested, ready to go. How are you today?
I'm feeling great. Yeah, watched the doubleheader last night to put a bow on week 7 of the NFL. And boy, it's a Tuesday, but we're already looking ahead to week 8. And there's plenty of news from around the NFL, some aftermath from last night's games that we can get to as well this afternoon. Let's set the table first, and we'll talk some fantasy football later on this afternoon with our buddy Michael F. Florio from NFL Network. We'll set some waiver wire priorities, and we'll discuss some of these rumors that are floating around the NFL right now. Plenty of injuries to make up for as well.
Yeah, I mean, some of these rumors, you and I look sideways. We'll get to this in a second, but yeah, fantasy-wise, coming out of last night, what do you do with the Buccaneers offense moving forward? That was electric. And then your two weapons go down. One definitely for the season. What does this mean for the quarterback? What does it mean for the three-headed monster running back? We'll talk about a lot of fantasy issues. Michael F. Florio, Bills fan and Mets fan, coming up at 4:45 today.
Rochester Americans head coach Michael Leone stops by the sports bar 4:25. We'll get a little state on the team as they get ready for Wednesday night. It's the first of a home-and-home against the Cleveland Monsters this weekend.
Yeah, so the Amerks coming up short in the weekend against Toronto. But, again, it is October, so what is the priority here? And it is a young team. So we'll talk to Michael Leone, the new head coach of the Rochester Americans. I guess, what is the limit here at calling him new head coach? I guess maybe a month, and then we...
It's his first year as the head coach.
Yeah. First year.
Rookie head coach.
Rookie head coach.
Yeah. Well, we're appreciative of him giving us some of his time. And, yeah, we have a home matchup here against Cleveland coming up on Wednesday night at Blue Cross Arena before they head over to Cleveland for a follow-up on Saturday, the back end of the home-and-home against the Monsters. So we'll catch up on the squad. Mike Leone, Rochester Americans head coach, stopping by at 4:25. And as you mentioned, Matt Perino, who covers the Buffalo Bills for Syracuse.com and the Syracuse Post-Standard, stopping by here in about 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, so Matt, we saw him at the stadium on Sunday, and he's going to be heading out to Seattle. So some of these injuries, if the Bills are down 2 linebackers potentially, and here would be my guess, Danger. We're not going to learn anything tomorrow. We may have to wait until Friday on something like that. But how would this look going against this offense? Actually, the Seattle offense puts a lot up through the air. Seattle is a mystery team to us, but maybe this is just a game where it kind of starts from within. How do you start quicker for the Buffalo Bills? That's going to be the top storyline coming up Wednesday. We know it coming in. So we'll get the thoughts of Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, coming up at the bottom of the hour.
We appreciate you listening, however you may be doing so. You can hear us locally at 95.7 FM, AM 950. You can catch our stream on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, also streaming on Twitch at The Fan Rochester. We sound our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app. And on your smart device as well when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. You can engage with us on Elon's Twitter, that's X, at The Fan Rochester. And our phone lines are open for you at 585-866-4FAN, 4326.
So we're still a couple of weeks away from the NFL trade deadline, and it's got an early jump because that's what the Jets decided to do. And Brandon Beane now waiting, hey, what's the best value out there? And I'll kind of say that. If you just kind of look at it, who's the better receiver? You can argue Adams, you can argue Cooper, but the best value you would have to say would be Cooper for what the Bills are paying for him, what the price was. What do we feel about this rumor that the Rams are shopping Cooper Kupp? Now that he's healthy, Cooper Kupp on the market, does this scare you, Danger?
Well, it doesn't scare me. I mean, can the Bills be in on Cooper Kupp? They were in on Amari Cooper. Is there anything stopping them from being in on Cooper? Because I'm interested in making the team as good as possible.
Well, the Bills do have a second-round pick. In fact, they have two of them. And they could use that because that's apparently the asking price for Cooper Kupp right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my gosh, if you added that. Oh, wait a second. There's a team in the Midwest, and I go back to last Tuesday, Danger, where Jay Binkley invited us on the show. I ended up doing the segment on 96.5 The Fan in Kansas City. And why do they want to talk Buffalo Bills football? Oh, their fan base is not happy. They look at the wide receivers. They look at the injuries. Wait a second. There's not enough.
Not happy and undefeated.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, that's kind of similar to here, right?
Right.
We're by 24 and we're complaining.
Yeah, well, the way it's described, the way the parameters of this, this shopping is being described is basically that the Rams would eat some of that salary, but they want a number 2 overall pick, or a second-round pick, I should say, in exchange for – they're basically buying a second-round pick and giving up Cooper Kupp to the team that is willing to pay that price. And, yeah, it does set up where if you're the Chiefs, you could very easily see that happening. But I wouldn't just automatically say Cooper Kupp to the Chiefs makes all the sense in the world. That's an automatic that's going to happen. There are a lot of teams that could use the services of Cooper Kupp, and hell, we watched one of them last night. If you're the Bucs, what are you doing now? No Godwin, no Mike Evans. What are you doing now? You're in contention to win that division. Why not go all in? What are you doing if you're the Niners with Ayuk gone for the rest of the season, with pneumonia for Deebo Samuel? What is pneumonia going to do to this guy? What's he going to come back looking like?
I wish there was a little more transparency when it comes to that stuff for fantasy football or your player props. Like I saw illness, I'm thinking, I'll keep him in, and I'm going about my day on Sunday, and there he goes. Hard for me to imagine the Rams trading him to the Niners, but you bring up an interesting destination. I'd also ask this, Danger, now that Adams is off the market, now that Cooper is off the market, I'm not talking Cooper Kupp, I'm talking Amari Cooper. Got to distinguish our Coopers here. Who else is out there? Deontay Johnson? It would seem like the Rams are saying second. I don't know. I would say aim higher for this. I mean, like, if you have a team that is that desperate, and maybe the Buccaneers are, maybe they are the team, because up until last night, going into that game, I was so interested to see the Bucs with my own eyes, thinking, could they actually be a surprise Super Bowl team? This storyline that Baker Mayfield is going to find it here later on here in his second contract, that you have these veteran receivers, you have this decent running game, and you have just enough on offense with a defensive-minded head coach in a crappy division. I'm thinking, wow, that could be it. And then almost on cue, there's a bad decision by Baker Mayfield. Oh, wait a second, Baker Mayfield didn't see that defensive back coming across, and then the injury to Evans, which I hate, and then I really don't like the injury to Godwin.
Yeah, well, Baker Mayfield statistically has been fantastic. I mean, if you have Baker Mayfield on your fantasy team, you don't need me to tell you. I mean, he's been awesome. But it's the decisions. The red zone turnover is when that game changed last night. I mean, the way Tampa came out and kind of punched Baltimore in the mouth should be viewed as a template for what teams should do to try and beat the Ravens moving forward, because the Ravens look like a team that isn't going to lose for the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. They look unstoppable. Now, to bring it back to the trade rumors, why not Baltimore? Could you imagine Cooper Kupp in that offense? Another receiver for Lamar Jackson to find. I mean, it feels like any team is that's willing to give up that second round pick can have him. I mean, then it's a land grab. Why not the Cowboys? I mean, there's just so many. And then there's another rumor that's out there, and this one I don't really believe, that Matt Stafford that they're talking about trading Matt Stafford to the Vikings. Are we just talking about this on a Tuesday so that more people will watch the Rams and the Vikings on Thursday night? Are we trying to goose a number for Amazon for the Thursday night matchup between the Rams and the Vikings? Because trading Matt Stafford to the Vikings feels like a stretch.
Yeah, when I heard that, I immediately Googled Sam Darnold health, because the Vikings were the team where, hey, we've got a rookie quarterback. He looked really good against the Raiders in this preseason game. Oh, yeah, he's out for the year. What? So, why would they do something like that? Only if something were kind of like – that's the only reason you would do it. If there was something wrong with Sam Darnold. And I don't see anything evidence. He did have an MRI earlier in the year. I didn't even realize this. This was after the win over Houston.
Yeah.
And he came back clean, so that's why it wasn't even a story. So you're right. That's the Thursday night game. Let's talk about the quarterback with his old offensive coordinator and all the connections there. It's an interesting Thursday night game for sure.
It is an interesting Thursday night game, and we're hyping it up like it's going to be some kind of life-altering outcome, and I have a feeling it's going to be like most Thursday night games and just kind of sloppily played and mashed together and not really the best quality of football. But so a couple of rumors out there. Back to last night's game, and we mentioned the injuries at receiver for the Bucs now with Evans and the hamstring, Godwin with what looks like that is a season-ending injury to his ankle there. Funny, I saw Pro Football Talk mention this, and I think it's an interesting point that last season many said that the Bucs quit too early in their playoff loss to the Lions, and by doing that, maybe they cost themselves Chris Godwin in not quitting soon enough last night in a loss to the Ravens. I mean, they were going hard to the final gun, and it cost them their wide receiver in a game where it was out of hand. I mean, they weren't winning that game, even with the recovered onside kick, even with using all of your timeouts there within 2 minutes and getting the ball back.
Like the idea that you would have to score and then get another onside kick on top of that. The odds are very long if you strung all that together. I'm not going to blame the head coach.
There are people blaming Todd Bowles. So
yes.
How could that is malpractice? How could you do that? That is absolute insanity, and you lost Chris Godwin now for the rest of the season, and you probably, very likely that he's played his last down in Tampa.
It's very sad, I think, from that standpoint, and I think that the season isn't over for Tampa, especially if they can make a move. And I'll just say this, Danger. There is no shame in losing to the Baltimore Ravens. Everybody on a Tuesday does their power rankings. And you got to put the Chiefs up at top, right? If you listen every Tuesday, I think at 10:45, Ryder will do his power rankings, and the Chiefs are one. He gives the Bills the honorable mention. It's just fun sports talk, right? But it's nothing else. But I'll say this. The Ravens scare me more than the Chiefs do right now.
Oh, no
from
question.
From a Buffalo standpoint. And particularly, there was one nugget. I don't know if anybody caught this and connected dots like I'm about to try. Joe Buck talking last night, and they do these production meetings. And basically the way it works is Buck Aikman, producer, hey, they have the right to go into the visiting team hotel and sit down in some conference room, and in will come the head coach, and he'll give you some nuggets, and in will come some players, and they'll give you some nuggets. So they're having like a one-on-one conversation. So this isn't a press conference setting, and sometimes you get some good stuff if you communicate that way. And Buck is talking about Derrick Henry, and the topic is, well, Derrick Henry, how do you study film? You're Derrick Henry. Do you need to study film? And what Henry said was, I just look at the defensive effort by the opposing team, and then I know.
So he's looking at the physicality, the effort, the physicality.
The effort, yeah. And I'm just, I hear that, and I know if there is one player that over the years has own the Buffalo Bills, it's that guy. I don't see any evidence that the Bills are going to magically figure this out if they meet in the postseason. And then you put that guy behind that offensive line and you do a read option thing. There's no way. If I'm Buffalo, I would rather be, if Baltimore ends up being the 2, I'd rather be the 4 and go to Kansas City.
You'd rather play Kansas City in the postseason than Baltimore. Yeah, I agree with that. I wouldn't want to play Baltimore until you meet them in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, and then when you hear Henry say that, if I'm Sean McDermott, okay, maybe somebody caught that. Are the Bills physical enough? They've improved over the years. Don't get me wrong.
I tell you what, if you're Derrick Henry and you see Terrell Bernard or Dorian Williams or DeMar Hamlin, you see any of these guys, you're like you flick them off like a bug. They're not big enough. They don't have that size. I mean, there are linebackers in the NFL that if they were to go up against Derrick Henry, you'd be like, okay, and one of them is on his own team. Like, I would love to see a Derrick Henry, Roquan Smith meeting. Boom, just a physical pounding that the two would deliver on each other. But the Bills don't have somebody with that kind of size.
No, and the Ravens have an element to their game that is from yesteryear. I'm going to confess, all right, and I'll ask you the question here, Danger, and then I'll tell you my answer. If there is, and you can't say on the Bears, okay, not the Bears, not the Bills, not our favorite teams, is if there is a player in the NFL today that you enjoy watching, my answer is Pat Ricard. Project Pat, the fullback.
Yeah.
And I know he dropped a pass last night, but he does so much for that offense. And because teams don't see that physicality, I don't know, that would be a matchup I would not want in Buffalo. I would not want it in Baltimore. The best you can hope for is that Lamar Jackson turns into playoff Lamar at this point. By the way, who is your player that you would answer that?
He's not on the offensive side of the ball. He's on the defensive side of the ball.
Defensive side of the ball. Safety?
No. Fred Warner.
Oh, okay.
I want Fred Warner. I mean, I see Fred Warner, and maybe it is the Bears fan bias in me. Like, I love a good physical linebacker that can just operate a defense and run everything and make plays and be in the middle of it all. And that's him. That's who he is. That's the guy. For a while when Sherman was in the league, I'm like, oh, Richard Sherman's a guy I would want on my team defensively. Offensively, I love that pick. I love who this guy's almost 300. What is he, 260?
No, he's
300.
300. Yeah.
300 and moves like a gazelle. I mean, he moves. It's unbelievable to watch.
It's what the Bills try to do with David Edwards, or were doing with David Edwards and the 6 linemen that they'll bring in, but you never see that 6 lineman getting a handoff or much less going into a pass route. That's what Ricard is.
Yeah, no, that is something, and I'm with you, man. I wouldn't want to face that team until you absolutely had to, and then if you're Sean McDermott, the way your defense has always worked, I mean, you're not giving up the big play. You're set up to not give up the big play. Everything is in front of you. Everything is in front of you. Well, it's gassed you in the past. It's almost like you would have to completely sell out to prevent Derrick Henry to have the kind of game that he's had against you, and then force, you call him playoff Lamar, force Lamar Jackson to beat you. And Lamar Jackson could beat you, not just with his arm, but with his legs, obviously. And I would not like my odds in that fight, especially the way he's playing. And I'm sorry to Nate Geary or anybody who believes that Josh Allen should be the lead MVP candidate right now. He's not. It's Lamar Jackson. And to me, it's not even really that close. 5 touchdown passes last night, near perfect passer rating. He's got absolute command of that offense. And guys that are just selling out. I mean, it was ridiculous. They made it look easy.
So what would it say, though, if a guy won 3 MVPs but yet
doesn't win a Super Bowl?
Much less get to a Super Bowl.
Well, I think that's the thing, that if you're a voter, you shouldn't, but are you viewing it through the lens of this guy is won or is going to win a third or has the opportunity to win his 3rd MVP, but he can't make it to the Super Bowl? Does that bias enter your mind and force you to?
The bias this year is that he has more help with Derrick Henry. I think that's going to work against him. I mean, the MVP conversation is fun. And Nate brought up a good point. Josh Allen, no interceptions. The 1 fumble in week 1. He's doing everything. We've moved the goalposts again. That was Nate's thing. Like, hey, he turns the ball over too much. He's not turning it over at all. What do you want from the guy? So the answer to the question, who's the MVP? Who wins the most? It's very simple. It's not a nuanced argument anymore when it comes to voting for the MVP. Look at who is the number one seed in AFC or NFC, who is the quarterback. That's your MVP.
That's your guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hell, the way it's been going, you could say Sam Darnold is an MVP candidate. You could say Lamar. You could say Mahomes. You could say Jared Goff.
Yeah.
Jared Goff, the one that nobody's talking about, who's been incredibly efficient the last few weeks. My goodness. It's going to be fun.
To the point, though, like Mahomes, if they go 15-2 in the one seed, he should get it, but we're just so bored with it.
Yeah.
Like, that's not right.
Throw into a bunch of slappies. Well, that is until they trade for Cooper Kupp and give up a second-round pick to the Rams.
I'm bracing for that, aren't
Oh, boy.
you? Yeah.
I don't like thinking about that. But, yeah, that's where everybody's mind immediately goes to. My thing is, why not Buffalo? If you're Brandon Beane, why not? Do you feel like that's a guy that makes you better in Josh Allen's championship window? I think he does. But we'll see how it all plays out. We'll get to Matt Perino, who covers the Buffalo Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard. He's always good with his time to join us on a Tuesday afternoon. We'll revisit the win against the Titans. We'll look ahead to Seattle, and we'll talk about some of these trade rumors happening around the NFL as well with Matt Perino next on The Fan.
Bills are 3-point favorites for their game in Seattle on Sunday. Head coach Sean McDermott on the Seahawks.
We have a ton of respect for the Seahawks and coach and what they've done out there and players that they have. And we're going out to the Northwest, and we better be ready and have a great week of practice because they're a really good football team and well coached.
Practice resumes tomorrow for the Bills. We're scheduled to talk to Matt Perino, Syracuse Post Standard, in the Shout podcast coming up next year in the Sports Bar. Sabres hockey tonight on the Fan. Buffalo back home hosting Dallas. Our coverage will begin at 7. Opening night in the NBA. There are 2 games. Boston hosting New York. The Lakers taking on Minnesota. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Save half off to Lasertron in Henrietta. Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
This game is, I want to be aggressive on first down because I don't think you can stop us. I want to try and jump on first down, and I would be very aggressive throwing the ball downfield. I would live in a ton of play action. I don't think this front can get after Josh on a consistent basis nearly enough on those downs where they can minimize the big plays downfield. So I think it's a very aggressive start for the Bills if it was me.
That's ESPN analyst, former NFL quarterback Dan Orlovsky earlier today on One Bills Live with game plan for the Bills offensively as they travel to the Pacific Northwest to take on the Seattle Seahawks. We're going to try to get Matt Perino on the line with us. I'm sure Matt's busy. Maybe an emergency pod.
Or something, it's one of those things when you're a reporter and somebody calls you back. You're kind of like, all right, I got to take this call here.
Yeah, totally understandable. We'll try and get him on here at some point.
One of the questions I have for him is, okay, what if you don't have Dorian Williams and Terrell Bernard? Terrell Bernard was like, I give him credit for trying to get back out there, but again, we Matt's not going to know exactly their status, but what's behind them? How big a concern would that be if you're going?
Tyrell Dodson's starting for Seattle. Can we make a trade and get Dodson back with the Buffalo Bills? Anybody but AJ. Let's not put AJ Klein into the universe.
Are we worried about the Dodson revenge game here?
Dodson revenge game.
I mean, I don't think that's come up anywhere so far.
And Leslie Frazier is involved with this defense as well, right?
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Ooh.
Uh-huh. The keys to stopping the Bills' offense.
Ooh, that's kind of tasty. How did Leslie Frazier exit Buffalo?
With class and dignity.
That's unheard. That is absolutely correct.
That's right.
But why, though?
Yeah.
Why did he leave Buffalo?
Yeah.
I mean, was that really about
Gotta
that?
have a fall guy. Gotta have a fall guy when things don't go the way you want them to go. And they haven't quite gone the way that Sean McDermott wants them to go. While we're waiting to connect with Matt Perino, we should remind you, Mike Leone, Amerks head coach, stopping by about an hour from now, and we'll talk some fantasy football before 5 o'clock with Michael F. Florio from NFL Network. He'll be stopping by around 4:45. Man, Gino, watching Derrick Henry play football when he's not doing it to the Bills is an absolute joy because he doesn't look like he has any signs of slowing down this season. And then you look at his performance in Baltimore. When you look at what he's done so far, the pace that he is on, there's no question that he's been a value to that organization. The same could be said for the Eagles' investment in Saquon Barkley, who makes 53% of what Colts wide receiver Michael Pittman makes. He makes over $10 million less than Calvin Ridley in Tennessee, over $7 million less than Brandon Cooks in Dallas. Good teams, good GMs always get that return on their investment. And even at undervalued positions like running back, they've spent and they've found ways to get that return. You'll laugh at some of the money that New England dished out this offseason when you consider the lack of production you're getting from guys like Ramondre or Kendrick Bourne, Hunter Henry, okay, Antonio Gibson. And you begin to understand why they're a one-win team. Now, as for the Bills, Let's just say it's a good thing that Bean traded for Amari Cooper, because if he produces, it'll make us forget about the horrific signing of Curtis Samuel. And don't look at Dawson Knox's deal if you want to keep your blood pressure stable. A cap hit of $7.7 million for 5 receptions this season. Average players getting big deals, average players getting big extensions. The Ravens and Eagles reminding the rest of the league it's okay to invest in real talent.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to just kind of agree. The thing that we all can kind of agree on, the Patriots are the Buffalo Bills of the drought era. They're overpaying for things they shouldn't overpay to get guys that are there. The Patriots right now at a minus 76-point differential on the season. Only the Panthers are worse. New England is a bad team in danger. That's the insurance. Do you realize you play these Jamos there 2 of the last 3 games? That's laughable. A lot else there. I can't compare the running backs to the wide receiver market. I'm sorry. It's like Gabe Davis cost twice as much as Curtis Samuel. If anything, would the Bills have been better off served? I'm not going to criticize the Bills at the time for paying Dawson Knox the way that they did. They didn't have Dalton Kincaid. Now it looks really bad. And sometimes, like next year, okay, like year one, if you want to make the Knox comparison contract-wise to Saquon Barkley, go back to year one on everything on that. I would predict on Knox, he's the guy that Brandon Beane has the cuff with his agent. Hey, we'd like to have you back at this number. Well, you think about that. Knox is here also because he's really good friends with Josh Allen. I would say this too. It highlights the fact that the running back market, and this is what they've been screaming about for how long, was kind of priced a little low there. There is a difference between your 4th-round running back and, say, somebody like a Derrick Henry. And any Cowboy fan that wants to listen to this,
Yeah.
if you sign Derrick Henry, they're still not good. The Cowboys have more problems than Eddie Gross put that out there to them. Like, that's absolutely correct. The Cowboys are 3-3. They're probably 3-3 with Derrick Henry, too.
He was so much fun to watch last night. I mean, they were like wondering. Joe and Troy were wondering, like, where is he going to get it? When is he going to get involved? I mean, he doesn't typically get involved in a 2-minute offense, but when Henry did get involved, he got involved, and the Ravens looked very impressive in dispatching of the Buccaneers in Monday Night Football last night. Are we good to go with Matt Perino? Yeah. Matt Perino covering the Buffalo Bills for Syracuse.com and the Syracuse Post-Standard, joining us here in the sports bar. Matt, I want to put a bow on Sunday's win against the Titans. I want to look ahead to Seattle. I want to talk about some of these injuries that we might be dealing with this week when the Bills get back on the practice field. But can we discuss the rumors that are out there right now that Cooper Kupp is being shopped by the Rams, and immediately I think a lot of us go right to the A to B, and it's like, oh well, if Cooper Kupp is looking to be shopped, a team like Kansas City who needs a receiver is going to end up with Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, and the money doesn't look horrible, especially if the Rams want to eat a lot of it. I think it's something around $9 million this year, $5 million next year, but you can get about $15 million of it back if you were to cut them next year. I think it just goes into what they need, which is a Cooper Kupp type receiver, and the scary nature of that potentially for the rest of the AFC. And you wonder if maybe somebody else doesn't get involved. But I don't know. I also think that there's a competitive piece to it. Like, sure, if you can get a 2nd-round pick from the Chiefs, if you're the Rams, it's really like a 3rd-round pick, right? So, like, do you want a 2nd and maybe a 4th or something like along those lines for a Cooper Kupp 1 year kind of thing? I don't know. I find it hard to believe that McVay would be like, yeah, let's just ship Cooper Kupp over to the Kansas City Chiefs and help them win another Super Bowl. But we've seen crazier things happen, I guess.
Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard. Before we look ahead to Seattle, we look back there, and I think there's a couple storylines that come out of this game that carry over. One being Amari Cooper, the other being the slow start, or you could say slow starts we've seen for the Bills. Let's start with a positive. Your thoughts on Amari Cooper and what he's going to do for this Bills offense now that we've seen it, Matt, because to me, coming in short week for him, that's impressive what he was able to pull off.
Doesn't it feel like in so many ways that like Amari Cooper is this great departure from what Stephon Diggs was, and maybe not so much personality-wise, which that's obvious, right? But it really, truly, I think, lets them lean into this mantra that that they've established since training camp, right? Like, everybody's going to be involved. It doesn't matter who gets the ball. Like, you got to have a Cooper kind of guy in the top spot for that to really work. Because if you have a Stephon Diggs who, says all the right things and I think means well in a lot of different ways, but in the end of the day, you're going to have to get that guy the ball. Like, in the big moments, he's going to want the ball. And we saw down the stretch last season, that just didn't materialize, or didn't translate, I should say, into wins, winning plays, winning offensive football in the big moments. Sure, they racked up a lot of wins, but was it a sustainable winning formula? No, and they didn't get to the AFC Championship game once again. And I think what Cooper now gives them is it gives them a guy, I think we talked about this a little bit last week, that lets everybody else in the offense slot back into where they can be exceptional in their role, right? I think eventually you're going to see Mac Hollins slot down to wide receiver 4 or 5, which is where I think he belongs. And they went into the season with him basically as the wide receiver 1 until Keon Coleman was ready to take the mantle. But I think what we've learned through these first 7 games is, like, I don't know if Keon Coleman's going to be ready in this season to be that wide receiver 1 that they kind of needed him to be. But now with Cooper here, he could kind of be wide receiver 2, and then depending on the matchup, can absolutely kill a defense because there's so much attention that needs to be spent elsewhere on Cooper, on Kincaid, on Shakir. So I think the early returns, for them to do what they did last week, and I know it was only the Titans, I downplayed their defense all last week. They're the number 23 graded defense according to Pro Football Focus. And I know a lot of people are like, well, wait, they're one of the top defenses in the league. They're not allowing a lot of yards. They're not allowing a lot of passing yards, especially. Yeah, but they have not played any good quarterbacks. And then, they played Josh Allen, and it didn't go well for them, specifically in the second half. So, no, I think Cooper was a great ad, and I think Bean needs to be applauded for getting aggressive when he did. You could sit back and kind of see how the markets materialize and sometimes find yourself out of the mix for some of these key tradable pieces. And he got aggressive. He saw it was Cooper that they wanted to add to this offense. And so far, so good. I'd only imagine it's going to get better.
So, Matt, a couple of things there. Before we had you on, we were talking about the Ravens getting the value that they're getting out of Derrick Henry, the Eagles getting the value that they're getting out of Saquon Barkley, certainly Brandon Beane believing that they're going to get value out of Amari Cooper, only giving up a third-round pick and paying him just over $800,000 in salary. So I guess I have a couple of questions. One, where does Curtis Samuel fit into all of this as he tries to get healthy and get back on the field? And two, since it's the news of the day, why not? Would the Bills have an interest in Cooper Kupp? Would that make any sense? Is there any way that they would give up one of their second-round picks for Kupp?
I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. I definitely think it muddies the waters a little bit in terms of what it means for, you mentioned Samuel. I know he hasn't done anything yet, but they did invest $24 million into him. I think it's like 16.5 of that is guaranteed. So he's in their plans. He's somebody that obviously Joe Brady believes in, even though he's seemingly done everything he can game plan wise to not show you that. And then Shakir, to me, is the guy that currently sits in Cooper Kupp's role. So maybe it's a situation where you say, hey, we really like Cooper Kupp. We can do a bunch of different things. We can maybe take some of the strain off of Shakir and off of Kupp in that situation. I definitely could see a way that the Bills can talk themselves into making a move like that, even if it's just to, hey, we don't want him ending up in Kansas City, if those are the teams that are kind of in the mix for him, although Brandon Beane would have you believe that they're never concerned about what other teams are doing, a la the Xavier Worthy pick when they traded that pick with them. I don't know. I don't know if it's a perfect fit. I don't think it's something that necessarily supersedes what I think could be a better move for them at the deadline, and maybe that's going out and getting either a defensive tackle or a safety, because I think, listen, Damar Hamlin's played pretty well. I think he's played better than I think a portion of the fan base has given him credit for. Because there's been a couple of bad moments, just like there were in 2022. Like we know that. Raph's playing better now. I think there's some questions about depth on the interior, their defensive line. I think Ed Oliver has given you some good spurts. I think Daquan Jones is starting to play like the player that a lot of people thought he was going to be this season. But beyond that, Dwayne Carter has been great. But again, you have to protect against that rookie wall. Like if you're going down the stretch and you're relying on Carter to be that bona fide number 3 guy there, and that's without considering any potential injuries or anything like that. Austin Johnson's getting more comfortable, but do you want to maybe add a little bit more firepower in the middle, especially for a team that through 7 games has struggled to stop the run? And you talked a little bit about the Baltimore Ravens. You're going to have to stop that run if you want to try to win a Super Bowl. So I think defensive tackle more so than Cooper Kupp at this stage would make more sense.
Matt Perino, Syracuse Post Standard. I don't think we can point to it. It's not a one-week thing. How the Bills started out slow. They did against Arizona. They won. They did against Tennessee. They won. They did against Houston. They did not win. Matt, Sean McDermott, when asked about it, just said, hey, it's execution. Okay, sure, that's what it always is. But what's your opinion here? Why do we see this pattern here, the Bills having to turn it on there in the second half in these games?
I feel like there's this team, and maybe they've always been this way, but I think under Dable and Dorsey, they were so much more like attack-minded. I really think that Joe Brady is much more, it's a mental game, right? It's the chess match of it all. And I think he comes out and he thinks that he wants to establish the run. This is an offense that blends, the New Orleans style, which is what he came from, Sean Payton, with the Patriots offensive style, because that was what Dable was a descendant of, right? So, you want to run the ball. You want to be physical up front. You want to be able to, work the screen game, which they haven't been able to do. So when those things aren't clicking right off the jump, I think it leads to these kind of odd games. And then on the other side, you have a defense that just waits to see what an offense is doing and then just finds a way to put the clamps on whatever it is. And in that style, you can end up getting to the second quarter and having a couple of scoring drives that, happened against maybe even a lesser opponent like the Titans. And now you're in a hole if your offense didn't come out aggressively and have its success early in the game. So I'm not necessarily overreacting to it. I think in the moment, I was even a little bit critical of it felt like a lack of preparation for that defense for Joe Brady. But when I went back and watched it, I think that they thought what they were running was going to eventually start to work. And I think that's what we saw happen. And I also thought it was maybe the best game that I've seen all season, and there's been a couple of good ones from Spencer Brown. When he plays at that level in the run game and the pass game over the course of 4 quarters, it really wears on a defense because he's physical, specifically in the run game at the second and third level, the way they get him out in space and downhill. Like that Ray Davis run that went for 20-plus yards, go back and watch that. Spencer Brown took out 2 guys on that run, and he got downfield at almost a third level and sprung them really into the third level on that run. And so I think, do they have to be better executing at the beginning of games and maybe come up with a better, first 15 plays where you're drawing it up? But I also think there's a piece of all of this is that you're learning your own personnel. You're learning what works earlier in the game, maybe some easy buttons for Josh Allen. And I wonder if that's a trend that shifts over the course of the season as Brady kind of gets more experience with what this specific set of skill players is able to do.
Matt, I'm nervous about this weekend. I'm nervous about Kenneth Walker. I'm nervous about the physical nature of his game and what it might mean against the Bills' defense. And I'm especially nervous knowing that we might have some injuries to deal with here at linebacker. If you're looking at both Terrell Bernard and Dorian Williams, battling to get on the field on Sunday, I think you've got some issues there. What are you projecting as far as what we would hear from them this week and their availability, their ability to get on the field on Sunday? And if they're not able to go, Balen Spector is a name we're familiar with, obviously, but what else? What else is behind them here in a way to try and slow down Seattle's offense?
If they both can't go, I wonder if they give an opportunity to Joe Andreessen to run the middle linebacker spot and then let Balen Spector play off the ball. We saw him come in for Dorian Williams for a bit in that game there. He came in for Terrell Bernard too, so he's able to play both of those spots. Really smart guy. And they like the fact that I think that's why he's stuck around despite the injury issues, is because he has that kind of Tyrell Dotson versatility, and they love that in their linebackers. But I think, if Bernard can't go, I think you give a chance to Andreessen to play. I know that's a tough spot, not having potentially Dorian Williams out there, but I did think, reading between the lines yesterday when Sean spoke, it felt like Dorian Williams was in a different bucket than Terrell Bernard and Curtis Samuel, although he wasn't willing to say if any of those players was in a day-to-day versus a week-to-week kind of thing. They're still evaluating. We'll learn more tomorrow. But I think Dorian Williams is probably in a better spot to make it through the week and be available. And then that puts you in a situation where you're probably back to Spector. But if both can't go, my guess would be Andreessen and Balin, and then maybe Nicholas Morrow as that first linebacker off the bench. Or maybe they feel like Morrow has made enough of a stride. You go Balin, Spector, and then put Morrow off the ball. He played mostly middle in Philadelphia last season. He traditionally is an off-the-ball linebacker, so we'll see. They have some options. We haven't seen anything from Ejiofor and Ulafosio, the rookie that they kept on their roster. He's been inactive, so I can't imagine he gets himself into the mix, but maybe they try a couple different things at practice this week if both those guys aren't trending in a good direction.
Yeah, Matt, what do we think of this matchup? I'm having trouble putting my finger on Seattle, a team that's coming off a win at Atlanta, a team that's in first place, a team that lost 3 straight, including a loss to the Giants at home. What do we make of this opponent here?
I think first and foremost, it's an advantageous matchup for the Bills defense because Sean McDermott, Bobby Babbitt's defenses against a quarterback for the first time. And I know Geno Smith's not a young quarterback, but again, figuring out and playing against the way that they disguise things is going to be a challenge. Now, if you don't have Terrell Bernard in that game, it changes the math a little bit. I don't know if you could count on Andreessen or even Balin Spector to be as good in that spot against them. But I think it comes down to like any other game, like winning that battle up front. I mean, Greg Rousseau, I know the sack numbers haven't been there, but there's some advanced analytics that have showed how impactful he has been off of the edge. You have Ed Oliver, who's trending healthier and healthier off of that hamstring. He made a couple plays last week. They're going to need a huge game out of him. And then offensively, you got to do what you did against the Titans. You got to score probably 24-plus points to win on the road against Seattle. And, if your defense gives up a couple of big plays in that game, you mentioned Kenneth Walker, that changes the math as well. So I think it's a tough road game. I think Sean historically gets his team up to play in those West Coast games. I think since 2020, I did the math, the Bills are 3-1 in true West Coast games. So we'll see if that success continues. But I like the matchup. I like the matchup specifically because Geno hasn't really seen this Bills defense a ton. I think maybe only one matchup. I got to go and find it. He has one game against the Bills in Sean's tenure, but I think he was a backup in that game. So I don't know if he's actually played against a Sean McDermott defense. And then you got to continue to see Amari Cooper, put the Seattle defense a little bit off tilt and let all these other guys kind of eat. I think we're starting to see the real emergence now of Dalton Kincaid. Like they're leaning into it. They're getting him on the field more. He's hovering around 80% of the snaps the last 2 weeks. I think that's where you want him to be. I think you want him to get as many opportunities against defenses as you can get.
And Matt, you mentioned Tyrell Dotson earlier. It's Leslie Frazier's involved with this defense, right? Is he not a consultant or somehow involved in Seattle's defense?
He is. Yeah, I think he's. I don't know the exact title. I have to look it up, but he's definitely out there. I think he was a big reason why they brought Dotson in.
Yeah, Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard. What are you and Ryan working on? Shout podcast, all that stuff as we're working our way to Seattle here.
Yeah, we had a great time over the weekend. Put together a little hype video. We had probably a little north of 50 people come out for the live show, which was super cool. Wingnuts was popping, so that was a fun time. We'll have our Staples show tomorrow. We'll have a preview later this week, and then I'll be on the ground in Seattle for Bills Seahawks on Sunday.
Have you ever been to Seattle, Matt?
This is my first trip. This is the last big city that I haven't been to between the UFC and covering the Bills. I think I've been to every major American city except this one.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like the 12s. Like, it's been a few years here, but like, are the Bills going to put in some extra work here? And that should we expect them to practice silent count this week?
Oh, definitely. I bet you that practice facility is going to be buzzing if you drive by. You might be able to hear it from Abbott Road.
Yeah. Love it, Matt. Safe travels. Thanks for the time as always. Let's talk again next week.
All right, boys. Take care.
You got Matt Perino, covers the Buffalo Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard. You can read his work at syracuse.com. Also, the Shout podcast.
How would we feel if it were Joe Andreessen at middle linebacker and Balen Spector off the ball?
Love the story. Who doesn't? I would feel terrible. I would not be excited about that. It's a great story, but it was the preseason. I would be nervous about that.
If it's Dorian Williams and Balen Spector, I think
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay.
I'm okay with that. I'm not that confident, but I'm okay with it. I think if it was Andreessen, I love the story. I would be nervous. I would be more nervous, obviously.
I can safely report there hasn't been any chatter of A.J. Klein coming back to the Buffalo Bills.
Well, that's a relief. Mike Leone, Rochester Americans head coach, is going to stop by. He'll be here in about a half an hour or so. We'll also talk some fantasy football next hour with Michael F. Florio, our buddy from NFL Network, also Bills Mafia. We'll talk to him about this matchup between the Bills and the Seahawks with F, as we affectionately call him, Michael F. Florio from NFL Network, stopping by around 4:45. And next in the sports bar, it's NBA's opening night as well.
Yeah, we get the Knicks and Celtics, and we get a little love affair for LeBron James.
It's with that in mind, Gene, that I'm gonna go ahead and release a new set of power rankings.
That's what we do on Tuesdays, right? Power rankings. Power.
Charmin League power rankings. The softest of the soft. We'll get into it.
I can only imagine.
Uh-huh. We'll get into it next on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger. AM.
WBEE HD2 and W239BF Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Buffalo Bills are 3-point favorites heading out to the West Coast to take on Seattle this coming week. Head coach Sean McDermott. And why have we seen the Bills get off to some slow starts this year?
I think just comes down to execution and some fundamentals, and then not beating ourselves with pre-snap penalties. Give all the opponents credit, but there's also an element for us of just execution more than anything.
Practice resumes tomorrow in Buffalo. We'll talk some fantasy football later this hour. Michael F. Florio, NFL Network, joining us here in the Sports Bar. Sabres hockey tonight here on the Fan. Buffalo hosting Dallas. Coverage begins at 7. Every team in the NHL in action tonight with staggered start times every 15 minutes. It is opening night in the NBA. 2 games, Boston hosting New York, the Lakers hosting Minnesota. Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, the Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Hey, Seattle.
Go Hawks.
Touchdown, Seahawks!
This is the unique football setting in the NFL. Secondly, they have a really good group of skill guys. Their seasons is pretty simple. They hold the team to 20 or less, they win. Team scores more than 20, they lose. So that's the goal for the Bills. You got to put up points against Seattle. The good news is their defense is atrocious.
This probably is going to be the second best rushing offense they're going to play all season, but I think they're catching him at the right time.
Mike Danger.
I am concerned about the run defense of the Buffalo Bills, and the points you bring up on Walker and on Charbonnet are valid, and it makes me nervous about the game on Sunday.
Gene Battaglia.
It was just a static start, and that's one of the top storylines, right? How do you get off to a better start? Any theories as to why this has been kind of a recurring issue?
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Busy 4 o'clock hour for us here on the Sports Bar. We're glad you're with us. Mike Leone, Rochester Americans head coach, about 20 minutes from now. And give us around 40 minutes or so. We'll talk some fantasy football with Michael F. Florio from NFL Network as he stops by the Sports Bar before we hit happy hour at 5 o'clock. We appreciate you stopping by and listening however you may be doing so at 95.7 FM, AM 950. We're in the free-to-download Odyssey app, sounding our best on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan, and trying to look our best on the video stream right now, our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, and streaming on Twitch at The Fan Rochester as well.
Yeah, so Emmerich's head coach Mike Leone coming up here. Michael F. Florio, busy day. I'm always out and about doing sales stuff. Happy to report we're going to be doing some stuff with We The Hobby.
Oh, hear a lot about We The Hobby.
It's a fun place, and I love the neighborhood of the yards, too. Like, we're at Three Heads regularly, right?
Yeah.
And so it's right down the road in Arlington. That's the building where they painted Conehead on the side.
That's right.
Yeah, so was in there today and was talking with Sam. Sam Peebles played basketball at Nazareth. I've known her for years. She's bemoaning the fact that her fantasy team is off to a 1-6 start.
Nobody likes being the 1-6 team in fantasy.
No, and it's like, well, you drafted CMC, and then you came back around, and they could rattle, and then Travis Kelce. I'm like, that doesn't sound like a good roster there, and it's a very competitive league. But she's not worried about not winning. She's just worried about not finishing dead last. This is one of those leagues, Danger, where you have the punishment. And I love this. This is a Rochester league that has the punishment. So what are the punishments? 2 years ago, and they change them every year, the last place team had to run the half marathon. Last year,
which takes some training,
the last place team had to take the SATs.
Okay.
This season, the loser, and it might be Sam, she might have to set up a lemonade stand right there on Park Ave.
Okay.
Acting like a 9-year-old, asking for dimes. Danger, rank those punishments.
Well, the running the half marathon it's a punishment, but only if you're not training for it. If you're training for it, then it's actually like you could run a half marathon and feel like $1 million afterwards.
If you and you're in better shape, so this would force you into something.
Right. If you were saying run a half marathon, no training, that's gonna suck. That's gonna be tough.
Your last ever volunteer waiting. Where is this person?
Yeah.
Come on, cross that finish line.
I would say that taking the SAT doesn't feel like a punishment because really, who cares? I mean, you're just gonna you're gonna take it, and I'm gonna, are you supposed to give an effort on that? Because I don't know that I'm giving an effort on the SAT.
Oh, who cares?
I know I didn't do it when I was in high school.
Okay, time out. You're going to be in there with a bunch of 16-year-olds, right? And, who is this old dude going in there?
Do they still do that? Is that still a thing where you have to go to a certain place? Or I don't know what's online and what's not anymore. I should be more involved in my kids' academics.
Well, they don't put as much weight into it anymore, from my understanding.
Correct. The selling lemonade on Park Ave doesn't really bother me. Selling lemonade on Avenue D, different story. But I'm okay with selling on Park Ave. I think you're okay.
You could get popped, though, theoretically, right? If somebody called you in or where's your permit for this stuff? You do need permits.
The worst punishment of all, and I'm glad you brought this up, because we are at the stage of the fantasy football season where the people this is where you separate the people who are into it, really into it, and the people that are just kind of I don't really care. It's just whatever. But the people that are just the people that are just whatever, they realize now oh crap, I've got one win and I'm in last place. Now I should maybe start paying attention because I don't want to finish in last place. It's oh no, you needed to be paying attention week 2, week 3, week 4. You can't make up that ground that quickly. Realistically, if you're lingering around 500 in most leagues in fantasy, you're probably doing okay for yourself.
You're going to be okay. You should, if you're farting around, you should be able to get, if you manage it correctly, but you got bye weeks and everything. 1 and 6, you're in big time trouble.
So, and I know this to be true because like your friend at We the Hobby, I got a text yesterday in one of our group chats in my neighborhood. You've heard me talk about my neighborhood before, right? We have a fantasy football league. And
right.
Timmy Parmesan is the commissioner of our fantasy football league. Joey Dryer Sheets was very upset. He lost, based on last night's outcome, by a fraction of a point. And everybody hates losing by a fraction of a point. It's the worst. He lost by a fraction of a point. He has 1 win on the season, and Joey Dryer Sheets has finished last in our neighborhood league 2 consecutive years. And the punishment for him is far worse than anything you're talking about. The punishment for him is he has to host the draft the following year and invite all of us goons into his house and entertain us and feed us, and he doesn't want to do any of it.
Well, all right, I'm trying to piece this together, and I've met some of your Goombas. Some of them I haven't. I haven't met Joey Dryer Sheets. Is he not?
No, you know Joey Dryer Sheets.
Do I?
I think you know Joey Dryer Sheets. He's got a background in sports.
He's a background. Okay. But you call him Dryer Sheets because his wife made him go get
he had to leave poker one night because there were no dryer sheets in the house, and he had to go to Wegmans and pick up dryer sheets. Joey Dryer Sheets.
Oh my gosh, you're kidding me. That's he will never. Well, I don't think Miss Dryer Sheets is going to be too happy about all the Goombas coming over.
Well,
right?
she's wonderful. She's terrific. She cooks and she makes us food, and
right.
we all show up and we invade their space for a couple of hours while we host we have our draft, and then we go on with our day. But I just know it's not something he wants to do for a 3rd consecutive year, and losing by a fraction of a point doesn't make him feel very good. So we're at that stage of the fantasy football season where now it's your dread becomes panic. It's oh my God, I can't finish in last place, can I? Well, you can,
yeah.
And if you haven't been maintaining, and your draft may have been one thing, your free agent pickups and then your roster management, the 3 legs of the stool that is a winning fantasy football strategy. But enough football for a second, Gene, because today is opening night in the NBA. Opening night in the NBA.
I detect sarcasm in that. Listen, they got Knicks and Celtics.
Oh, it's good matchup.
And the Celtics are going to trash them tonight. The Celtics are somehow, they won the championship, but they feel disrespected. Blah blah blah.
Hey,
blah.
I loved seeing this news cross my feed today from Shams on ESPN that both Joel Embiid and the newly acquired Paul George won't suit up tomorrow night for the Sixers against Milwaukee. The NBA is back, Gene. Aren't you excited?
You're kidding.
Neither of them will be on the court for game 1 of the season. It's with that in mind
Wow.
that I am presenting to you today the first ever Charmin League Power Rankings.
Oh.
We're talking soft.
Well, the only question is, like, as you set it up that way, who's number 2?
That's right. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
Number 5, of course, the NFL. I mean, imagine opening day, kickoff for the NFL where the biggest stars are load managing. It's an impossible thing for me to imagine. And if load management is happening in the NFL, they're just better at their messaging and hiding it than the other leagues, okay? Number 4, I'm going to go with the NHL. And they may be the toughest athletes on the planet. But I'm not naive enough to believe that there are players that aren't missing time because they're just strung out or hungover. That's the NHL.
Fair enough.
Number 3. This might be a little bit shocking that they're not higher on the list. I'm going with soccer. Soccer, number 3. And I know, flopping aside, these guys will still get out there. They'll run their guts out. I've got soccer at 3 in my Charmin League Power Rankings. Number 2. Yeah. 162 games. I get it, baseball. It's a long season. The majority of the time of your season is spent standing around. Also, the only sport where a hangnail or blister keeps you out of the lineup. I got baseball at 2, and of course, I've got number 1, the NBA. Entitled stars opting out of playing at the worst possible time. I can't imagine the lack of heart to not suit up in the playoffs and at least attempt to give it a go. Zero self-awareness, most certainly the least fan-friendly. The NBA, number 1 on my Charmin League Power Rankings, soft.
I would flip baseball and soccer, but you're more of a soccer guy. I'm more of a baseball guy, but I don't want to go down that path. I want to go, dive into the NBA, because when did this change? When did it change? Like the Bad Boys, Lambeer, like Jordan Bulls, all the teams that we remember and we hold in high regard. Like, when did softness creep into the NBA? Now it's like, what is the commissioner going to do about any of this? Ooh, nothing. Nothing at all. You might not be eligible for a postseason award. Ooh. Yeah, that scares Joel Embiid.
Right.
When did it start? Can an NBA fan answer that question? Because this was not the culture 25 years ago.
Can I share a theory? My theory? It started with the decision. It all began with the decision. The entitlement that came with the decision.
Getting everybody together.
Yes,
yeah.
I can do whatever I want because I am bigger than the team. I am bigger than the league. I can do what I want to do. I can get players to come and play. I can take a night off, and what are you going to do about it? I'm the biggest star in the game. And that has permeated throughout the league since that happened, since everybody saw the attention that moment in time in the league got. Now it's like, yeah, okay, what are you going to do? I can't go. I'm not going to go. Well, you can go, but I'm not going to go. Okay. It is a league run by the players.
Yeah, and you could say, well, baseball, 162 games. I hear it may be that there's too many. The NBA has too many games. I would add on Greg Popovich. He's also partly to blame. He would be waving his middle finger basically at the NBA and the fans. Hey, it's a second row game in as many nights. Yeah, I'm not playing Duncan. We're not going to play Ginobili tonight. Sorry.
I hate it.
Like, yeah, that's it. Like, I'm not. I'm going to rest these guys for games that actually do matter. And if we lose, and I'm the 4 seed instead of the 3 seed, Francesa. That's kind of that he's also to blame for part of this.
Who cares?
Yeah. So. Look, I am excited that we're at this stage of fall where everything is happening. It's fantastic. Don't get me wrong.
Well,
everything is happening.
I'm watching Celtics-Lakers tonight. I'm not watching the manufactured nonsense of the teams in the Western Conference that are good. You have Minnesota, certainly. You have Denver that won the championship. You have the team that actually went to the final last year in Dallas. You have OKC. Now, I need to go on? No, we're going to spotlight the Lakers tonight.
Gene.
Because, hey, you want to talk about entitlement.
No, Gene.
And here come the Griffies. Hey, here are the Griffies to put their stamp on this. Let's watch father and son tonight together.
Gene, what I'm hearing from you is anything but appreciation, okay? And I think you need to step back, take a moment, and just appreciate what LeBron has done. Okay? Because when he's gone, you may not love him, but when he's gone, you will appreciate him.
LeBron is every sports parent you despise. And I'm going to manipulate and put my own son on the team when he doesn't deserve it? How's that going to go over in the locker room? I can't wait to watch tonight. Oh, there I'm admitting it. I'm going to hate watch this
tonight.
It's
so funny how in the NFL you have somebody who acts kind of like that in Aaron Rodgers, and we all despise it. But in the NBA, it's held in high regard.
I think part of it is the market. Like, if LeBron was trying to pull this nonsense, and that's why he's in a safe place out in L.A. He's a star. Everybody loves the Lakers. Newsflash, the Lakers are nothing more than the Cowboys. The way Jeannie Buss runs that, as long as you sell tickets and get your name in the headlines, that's what the Lakers are these days. Like, LeBron he could have gone to Philadelphia. He could have gone back. Like, he could have gone anywhere this year, but you know why he didn't? Because he wanted to do this. He had the means to do this.
In that regard, like, I love the idea of a dad being there and wanting to do this with his kid. Like, he's there for his kid, even though it's pretty clear that his kid doesn't deserve to be where he is as they're getting ready to start a season together. You go ahead and watch that. I know that there's 16 NHL games tonight, including one right down the thruway from us that I'm going to pay attention to. And while we're shifting gears here and talking hockey, let's welcome in Rochester Americans head coach Mike Leone for his weekly visit. We'll talk a little bit about last weekend as they failed to get a game against Toronto, but we have a home and home again to look forward to this week, and it gets underway tomorrow night at Blue Cross Arena with Cleveland coming to town. We'll talk some Amerks hockey next on the Fan Rochester.
Possibilities are beautiful.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Back on the road for the Buffalo Bills this week. They are listed as 3-point favorites in Seattle. Head coach Sean McDermott of Buffalo on the Seahawks.
We have a ton of respect for the Seahawks and coach and what they've done out there and players that they have. And we're going out to the Northwest, and we better be ready and have a great week of practice because they're a really good football team and well coached.
Practice resumes tomorrow for Buffalo. Fantasy football talk later this hour. Michael F. Florio from the NFL Network will be joining us. Tonight, Sabres hockey here on The Fan. Buffalo hosting Dallas. Our coverage will begin at 7 o'clock. In fact, every team in the NHL is in action tonight. The staggered start times every 15 minutes. Opening night in the NBA, there are two games. Boston hosting New York. The Lakers hosting Minnesota. Gene Battaglia and the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Novikov with it, pass across to him, looking over, a shot, rebound, save made, and they score! And it's Josh Dunn right on top of the blue paint. Amherst up 1-0 with 7:23 to go in the first period.
There's Andrew Moss-Brooks on the call as the Amherst failed to get a point against Toronto last week. And as we welcome in Amherst head coach Mike Leone here in studio. So we had the weekend sweep at the hands of the Marlies. And this is a team now, Coach, that has scored. You've scored first in every game this season. So let's talk a little bit about the inability to kind of hold that lead and build on that momentum.
Yeah, I think if you look at our game as a whole, I think we're doing a lot of really good things. I think with a young group, a team that's 5-0, we had two goal leads in both games, and I think it's finding ways to where you have opportunities, whether it's a power play to go up 3-0 or a 2-on-1 chance to put teams away. I think it's a learning experience for the group for sure, and just managing games too, and that situation, managing the puck, especially in the if you look at the goals we gave up the first night at home, not that they didn't earn them, but we gave them almost all their goals. So I think it's just learning from those experiences, and especially with a young group, and next time we get a lead, it's managing that game, the emotion better.
Yeah, as you mentioned, it is a young group, and we're only 2 weekends into the season here. Well, there's going to be a game tomorrow, and I will get to that here. But the power play being one thing. Again, we're 4 games in here, Coach. Is it just a matter of this is going to pop at some point, or is this a time of year where let's try this out or try something different?
No, I think you just got to stick to it. I think it would be concerning if we weren't getting looks, but I think we had 13 shot attempts last game and really good looks, goal post. It's just we got to our execution in those situations have to be higher, and we just have to have more of a grittier mindset around those areas to score goals, like our 5-on-5 goals we scored. And I think sometimes too is not overthinking it. It's a 4-game stretch. Obviously, we would love to score a power play goal, but I think they're going to come. Obviously, Vinny does a really good job with our power play. We have really good players, and it's just sticking to it, and eventually you keep doing the right things, they'll come.
Rochester Americans head coach Mike Leone is joining us here in the studio. 95.7 The Fan, Rochester, your home of Rochester Americans hockey through 4 games. And in these games against Toronto, I mean, you outshot the Marlies, and it was by a wide margin. I mean, what has you encouraged through 4 games, even though we didn't get the outcome we wanted against Toronto this weekend?
Yeah, we met with the team early in the week. I think it's I'm big on the processes there, sometimes the outcomes, but if we continue with that, if you look at against a team that's 5-0, we did a really good job. I think we gave up 40 shots on the weekend, and over a long period of time, I think it's built in from the preseason to now. We do a really good job. We could skate and we could pressure the puck, and we had the puck a lot against Toronto, and we need to have better execution. I think we need to get to the inside a little more to create those second, third opportunities when we're getting shots, to making them more dangerous. But I think if you play away from the puck like how we're playing, and the mentality of the puck pressure and getting him back and being relentless, I think you're going to be on the right side of things more often than not. And even the 4 games, I think we're, it's somewhere around 22, 23 shots. But at the end of the day, you gotta score more than the other team, and we got to do a better job executing.
You one player I want to ask you about here because Sabre fans know first round pick here, Consta Helenius. He got on the board for you. He's super young. I didn't realize this until Don mentioned it. He's the youngest player in the American Hockey League this year. Like, how do you manage somebody like that when he's playing in a league of grown men here? Question number 1. And question 2, how's he doing so far?
Yeah, he actually could play 3 more years of junior hockey. It's pretty crazy to think about, but he's he's done a really good job for us. It's a smaller size rink. Things happen quicker, and I think from communicating with him, it's a different game. In Finland, we were playing. There's a lot more control breakouts. Here, it's fast. Everything is done fast, and he's, if you look at the first 4 games, he's probably had anywhere from 5 to 7 2-on-1s, odd man rushes, where I think his execution rate can be higher, but that's also learning the game. It's quicker to get your shot off, a little quicker in those situations. But he's a really good player. He's smart. He has really good habits. His defensive awareness away from the puck is really good. He's a 200-foot player. Now it's continuing to grow, and obviously there's going to be a lot of ups and downs with a really young player. But as long as he's working, he's going to keep getting those opportunities.
Young player on a young team, and this. I mean, this is the reality of the AHL. It's a development league, and we want to get these guys up to the NHL. So how has that been for you as your first year here as the Amerks head coach and working with the Sabres and kind of identifying, where you might be able to help down the road and where they might be able to help down the road as well? How has that balance been between Rochester and Buffalo?
Yeah, everything has been from day one I didn't know what to expect, new job, but the communication from the Sabres organization, even at training camp, has been outstanding. And obviously we have a lot of highly talented prospects, and it's making sure that they're developing. And for me, it's about, especially with any young player, it's about developing the winning habits to ultimately get up to the NHL and help a team win. I think that's the biggest thing is, obviously it's about production, especially with their young players. They have to produce. They're really skilled, but it's also when you get called up that they're playing to an identity and to a style of play that we want to have. And it's a young group, but it's been a lot of fun to work with the kids because they work. They honestly every day at practice they've been great to work with, and really excited about the future and working with them for the rest of the year.
Would you say this week in particular it's a benefit to get right back out there on a Wednesday night knowing, hey, you did a lot of good things, no points to show for it? Your thoughts on tomorrow night and this opponent here in Cleveland?
No, it's anytime you could have a quick turnaround like that. I think the group is, especially with the young group, just obviously there's things we need to work on, but the way we've been playing 5-on-5, and even looking, we haven't talked about our penalty kill. Our penalty kill has been outstanding.
Yeah.
Probably one of the best power plays in the league, and they went 0 for 9, I believe it was, on the weekend. So there's a lot of things that we're doing really well, and it's continuing to work on those things, not get away from it, especially not cheating the game for offense. I think that will come on our execution. Cleveland is a really talented team. They have a lot of their first line is as good as anyone. They're really good off the rush. They're really good in the O-zone. Good goaltending, fast. So it'll be a really good test for our group.
Mike, if a casual Amerks fan is going to take in their first game tomorrow night at Blue Cross Arena as you guys take on Cleveland, who are some of the players they should watch out for? Who's kind of stood out, and who are players that you think fans could gravitate their eyes towards and really pay attention to against Cleveland tomorrow night?
On our team?
Yes.
I think
highlight the boys.
Yeah, I think I don't know if I have enough time. 'Cause I'm gonna, but even like a guy like Josh Dunn, the guy we picked up in the offseason, he has 2 goals. He's 6'4" centerman. He's really good away from the puck. Now he's not a prospect, but he's a really good identity piece for us. And obviously, the Hellenius, Oslin, Wahlberg, the young kids that are really good. Komarov, a defenseman for us, has had a really nice season. A lot to ask for, 04 defenseman coming from the Quebec Major Junior League. But yeah, no, those would be the guys. But I'm also missing out.
We're coming to see the team, but I think, I guess it's a way of also asking. We've seen over the course of the last few years some of the prospects come through, and they're now playing in Buffalo, and they're guys that you could just tell.
Rosie's the one that people have seen before. That's,
and I guess I'm curious as to the guys that you're already making an impact with, that you're putting your stamp on, that
I think a player. Just the way he's been playing so far is no Oslin. He has no points, but if you want to talk about a winning hockey player away from the puck as a 200-foot center, he can kill penalties. He's irresponsible in all situations. I think he played 21 minutes last night as a really young, or the game before, and he's playing against, Nylander and the Shaws that have played a lot of NHL hockey games, and Noah's done a really nice job in his development I know he came over last year, but he had a big summer. Even a small thing like face-offs he went 62% in the face-offs last game, and he was, I think, under 40% last year.
Not a small thing.
No,
it's not a small thing.
When you talk about development as a player, he's a winning hockey player, and he's got a chance to play hockey at a high level for a long time.
Mike Leone, who knows so many people in hockey, working so many years. And you mentioned this was we were off the air. Tonight we get 16 games in the NHL. The Sabres and Dallas at 7. 15 minutes before that, it's Tampa Bay in New Jersey. You know John Cooper pretty well.
I do. He was, had a huge impact on my life. He was... played for him for 3 years in juniors, was a captain for him, was fortunate to win 2 championships with him. I still share texts with him, maybe not after last night after their game, but we're close. He's been a mentor to me. I've learned a lot from him, maybe not so much at the time when I was playing for him, but now that I'm a coach, some of the things he used to he was a bit old school, probably more old school than people think, but there's a reason why he is where he is, and he wins every year.
That's interesting because, I believe in that. If you have somebody that you look up to as a mentor when you're a player and he's your coach, you by default are going to get some of those habits. You're going to pick up some of those mannerisms, some of that style. Do you feel like you've picked up some of Cooper's style from your time playing with him and keeping in touch with him all this time?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with now looking back, and I was a young kid at the time. I was 16. Played for him for 3 years, so I was 20 years old, and it was all about the team with him. And no matter what, who you were, I was fortunate to play with Pat Maroon. Long NHL career. It was always about the team and whatever you had to do to win as a team. And I think it's always stuck with me. One of the things we have in a room is selfless, and it's probably something that I got from him that a lot of people, when you're behind closed doors with someone and you're winning a lot and you understand how someone's wired. Coop's biggest thing was it was always about the team, and that's something that stuck with me for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, when you're applying or they're asking you to apply for the job here in Rochester, how's that work? Like, did you put John Cooper down as a resume there?
Yeah, it always helps having him on there. I always say I'm the luckiest guy in hockey. I played for Derek Long, the Red Wings coach. Jeff Blashill is another one that is John Cooper's assistant that had a huge impact on my life. I walked on to Western Michigan. He was the coach that gave me an opportunity, and I learned a lot from him of, looking back on it. I've been really, really lucky.
Well, we're looking forward to this weekend. It's a home and home. We've got the Monsters at Blue Cross Arena tomorrow night, 7:05. You'll be able to hear the action on the Fan Rochester, but we encourage you to go out and check out this team. And Mike, it's great having you in the studio with us again for another update. Appreciate the time.
No, thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, Mike, by the way, they didn't tell you it's Rochester. The weather's like this all the time here in Rochester.
Oh, yeah. This is December weather, January weather. It'll be just like this. Yeah, no problems at all. Man, if only, right?
If only.
If only. We'll talk some fantasy football next on the Fan Rochester. Michael F. Florio joining us from NFL Network.
No matter your team, no matter your game, we talk sports. The Fan, Rochester.
Michael F. Florio, fantasy football for NFL Network. Bills Mafia as well. We get the win against Tennessee. We get to see a little Amari Cooper. We got some concerns about our linebackers going into Week 8. Mike, what are your thoughts on this matchup here before we get into some of the individual matchups here for Week 8 and set our lineups with it all getting underway Thursday in Los Angeles? Talk a little bit about Kenneth Walker, his physical style of play versus this Bills defense coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker is a player that I think Bills fans should be prepared to maybe be cursing at him a little bit this weekend or something like that, because speed has been an issue it's an issue for all defenses, but especially this Bills one. And Kenneth Walker has plenty of it. He was a running back that I was very high on coming into this year. And when healthy, you have seen why. He is always a threat to go the distance. He plays such a different style than, say, like Zach Charbonnet, who is more like their version of Ray Davis. And Kenneth Walker is like their James Cook. He's a home run hitter. If he gets out wide, that is very dangerous. And what I love is they're throwing him the ball more now. But the good thing for the Bills is, at least for Bills fans, is DK Metcalf is up in the air this week, and the Seahawks are a team that have been throwing the ball a lot this week, so that part of the matchup should favor well to the Bills. But, yeah, they're going to have their hands full trying to stop Kenneth Walker this week.
Well, Michael Florio, our guest here in the Sports Bar, as we take a look here at the Week 8 waiver wire, and a lot of this is predicated on injury, and you have the situation in San Francisco. Let's start there, and to think back, all that talk about where would Brandon Ayuk end up, and, well, unfortunately for him, it's ending up on IR here, the ACL tear. We don't know the situation surrounding Deebo Samuel, so if you are looking to shop here on the waiver wire, would you recommend Jennings, or perhaps is there enough to go get Ricky Pearsall at this point, or maybe somebody else? How would you assess the Niners as they're going to be taking on Dallas on Sunday Night Football?
Yeah, I think that Juwan Jennings is a must-add this week. We have seen him already step up when Ayuk or Deebo has missed time in the past, and he clearly has that chemistry with Brock Purdy. So he is the big get, the one that I'm saying spend the aggressive fab bidding on, because Ayuk is done for the year. This is not like it's like last time when he was banged up and it was like, okay, this will be fun for a week or two, but then Ayuk is coming back. Like there is no coming back this year, unfortunately, now. So I think that Jennings is a must-add. I'm putting in smaller bids on Ricky Pearsall, who is someone that I really liked during the draft process and thought that next year would be the year that Kyle Shanahan would have a lot of fun with him, because he could play in the slot, he could play out wide, he could win after the catch. He's one of those guys who doesn't excel at anything, but in my opinion, but does everything good, like well. And then the deeper league dart throw in San Francisco is Jacob Cowing, who is a deep threat guy, but his routes were limited this past week. Another rookie there as well. So more for deeper league players there. But you want pieces of this 49ers offense. And these next week or so, especially if Deebo can't play, it's going to be the secondary guys. So they are worth putting bids in on tonight.
Michael Florio, NFL Network, our guest on the Fan Rochester. Welcome back into the Sports Bar. Big win for the Ravens last night. They dispatched the Bucs, and the Bucs go down not only Mike Evans but Chris Godwin, done for the rest of the season. So I imagine that there are some players worth scouting and getting on your roster if you believe that this Tampa Bay offense can continue with Baker Mayfield behind center.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to look like the Bucs offense with Godwin and Mike Evans, but I trust Liam Cohen, their OC, and I trust Baker Mayfield, where I think they'll be able to get the most out of it, at least make it serviceable. So to me, the big two adds here, Jalen McMillan at the wide receiver position. He is someone that another rookie, but he flashed early in the year a bit and then kind of just wasn't getting enough volume behind the two big dogs there in Tampa. But he's a guy who played alongside Rome Odunze and Michael Penix at Washington and put up good numbers there. Primarily a slot guy, but can also move out wide at times. Cade Otton is the other one that I think is a must-add for Tampa Bay. He was already starting to get more and more volume and show a safe floor in fantasy. But look at what he did last night. And that was with those two guys. And like Godwin only got hurt at the very end of the game. And Otton still went out and gave you 10 targets. He had 100 yards. So, and with the bar of success being so much lower at tight end and given the state of the position, I think that he is a must-add this week. And then if you're in deeper leagues, Sterling Shepard and Tucker are two deeper names that you could take a min bid on or something like that, just to see if they are involved and if the volume goes their way.
Yeah, asking a question, because sometimes the waiver wire, you want to be 1 week ahead, 2 weeks ahead, and if you have an extra spot, what about Tutu Atwell with the Rams? Particularly, I mean, do you expect the Rams to actually trade Cooper Kupp, Michael?
As someone who I live in LA, I've been a huge Cooper Kupp fan throughout his entire career. I think he is best suited with Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford, and I have him on a lot of fantasy teams. So I am hopeful that he kind of just stays put and things don't change, because he is someone that I think could go to some teams and not be utilized the right way. But, like, if the Bucs come calling, that's an ideal fit, because that's your new Chris Godwin sliding right there, because Godwin was already playing the Cooper Kupp role for Liam Cohen. So if he gets traded, a little bit of volatility there. But Tutu Atwell is definitely a name that you could take a shot on. And, in fact, he is a player that I have been starting the last couple of weeks with no Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua in L.A. He is the go-to guy. I know we were speculating on Demarcus Robinson and Tyler Johnson and Jordan Whittington, but the last couple of weeks, Tutu Atwell has been the guy for Matthew Stafford and the Rams. So no harm if you, like you said, if you have an injury or an extra bench spot or something like that, just throwing him on the end of your bench and seeing if something like this comes to fruition.
When these reports come out there, Michael, tell us how you think, because I always try to figure out, all right, what's the reason why this is coming out?
Who's got the
now?
agenda?
Like, what's the agenda that the insider is getting fed the report that the Rams are shopping Cooper? The specific report that they're going to eat his salary and they want a second-round pick in return, because there are a lot of teams that I think that right now, if you looked at their roster, would say, yeah, a second-round pick for Cooper Kupp, we would sign up for that.
Yeah, but I think you do have to also factor in, like the Bills got Amari Cooper for a little. I know it's different contract-wise and stuff, but draft picks I always think are super overvalued in NFL. Like I would rather Cooper Kupp than a second-round pick, but teams don't always think that way. A lot of the times I think when I hear reports like this and stuff, my first thought is, does this actually make sense for the team doing so? And a lot of the times you'll just hear a name like, this team is bad, they have a receiver, this player should be up for trade. And like we've heard that with Deontay Johnson. But if you're the Panthers, you might have reason to be like, we're going to turn back to Bryce Young. We want him to have a reliable pass catcher, something along those lines. Maybe that's not the best example, but the Rams are one that it's easy to convince yourself, like, yeah, if a team came calling for Cooper Kupp, as much as he means to them, as long as he's been there, he is, even before Stafford, he has really been the face of this Rams offense throughout the Sean McVay era. But let's remember what it cost them to get that Super Bowl and then to try to stay afloat after that. They gave up a lot of draft picks. They've spent a lot of money. So they are a team that I think it would hurt them to trade Cooper Kupp, and they would want a good return, like a second-round pick. But if a team came calling and was like, look, we'll match your demands, it makes sense because they're not competitive right now, and they need to start thinking about the future. So to me, it always depends on the landscape of the team and if it makes sense for them.
Michael F. Florio, our guest, NFL Network. Not necessarily waiver wire question. Well, maybe it is. Maybe Tua Tagovailoa is sitting out there, and maybe you go grab him at the end of the bench. Maybe somebody cut bait. But, Michael, we're anticipating he returns to the field this week. Is it just, okay, everybody, back. Everybody that you were expecting to put up points for the Dolphins, here we go. Or do you need a week or two to actually see this first?
Well, one, he is out there on waivers in a lot of leagues, and I have been putting in a couple of bids. It depends on my quarterback situation, but if you need a quarterback, we know what Tua can be in this Dolphins offense. And I don't want to say it's as simple as, like, he's back, get everyone in, but it's pretty close to that. Like, I think if you have Devon Achane and Tyreek Hill and Tua plays, you start those guys, no questions asked. Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, the secondary options there would depend on the options of your fantasy teams. Like, I have a league where I've been getting away from Waddle for quite some time now, and I feel comfortable with my receivers. So I'm like, all right, I'll take a wait-and-see approach there. But then I have another team where I'm not that lucky, and I'm like, you know what? If Tua plays, I'm going to take the shot on Jalen Waddle this week. So, yeah, it is one of those situations where there's risk, but we know the upside is so high. So unless you have another really good option, I think it is kind of just treating it like, all right, Tua's back. It might take a week or so for him to get fully back into the rhythm of things. But if you have Achane or Hill and you say first-round pick on those guys, I don't see how you don't start them with Tua back.
Hey, Michael, as we look ahead to Thursday night, Week 8 gets underway in Los Angeles with the Rams hosting the Vikings. And I know several fantasy managers, myself included, if you have an IR slot in your league, built into your league, maybe you invested a draft pick in T.J. Hawkinson, knowing that this day was going to come. Do we see Hawkinson on Thursday, and where's the line as far as your comfort level of starting him right away? Is there a name that you would say, oh, you got to start Hawkinson over, say, I don't know, Zach Ertz, if you know that Hawkinson is going to go on Thursday night?
Yeah, I'm hopeful that he does. Their report was that it could either be this week or next week that he could return, and I do think they played it right by not having him come back against that very physical Lions defense. And then have a short week. I think that was a very smart move on their part. For me, yeah, it depends. I'd rather play Evan Ingram over Hawkinson. I would rather play Cade Otton over him. So that's going a little bit deeper. Kincaid, for all you Bills listeners, I would rather play him over Hawkinson. I think, though, if you've been anything deeper than like Cade Otton off the waiver wire, like if you've been getting by streaming, or if you're like, oh, hey, I picked up Jonnu Smith or Noah Fant or something like that, I think then it's okay to take the upside shot. But my approach, like I had Nick Chubb as a sit last week, any player coming off of this severe of an injury with this much of a layoff, I think it's okay to practice patience and want to see it first, because a lot of the times these guys come back, they're on a snap count. They need to this is something athletes talk about a lot. They need to regain the trust mentally back in that knee, because the last time they cut, they've been out for a year now. So it takes a little bit of time for them to start to feel like themselves again. But with tight end being what it is, it does make it a little bit different. But again, if you have a reliable option, I would go in that direction over Hawkinson.
Yeah, last one for me, Michael, and it's a team I think most of us fantasy-wise abandoned. In fact, their own fans probably abandoned. Talking about the Cleveland Browns here. Now that Watson is out, in terms of guys you might play, or perhaps, look at the waiver wire here. Nick Chubb, probably the only one, right? But are you looking at Jerry Jeudy? Would you consider David Njoku? How does the Browns – can we assume the Browns offense might have a little bit of life this week as they're going to be taking on the Ravens?
I think so. There's one Brown that I will play with confidence, and it is David Njoku. He had 14 targets last week, 3 of which were end zone targets. The usage is through the roof for a tight end. And with the Browns giving up so much pressure, regardless of who the quarterback is, I think they're going to try to get rid of it quickly. And he is the short, quick target. Nick Chubb, I want no part of this week. I know he scored a touchdown, but he averaged 2 yards per carry, and the Ravens have been the best run defense in the league this year. I don't really want to do the Jerry Jeudy or Elijah Moore thing. I will say in 2 quarterback leagues, I'm picking up Jameis Winston because I am a sucker for Jameis Winston. He is so much fun. It might not always translate to NFL wins, but he is going to air the ball out, and he brings a high ceiling, a lot of upside for fantasy purposes at least. But for me, with the Browns this week in 1 QB leagues, it is David Njoku or bust.
Michael Florio, NFL Network, our guest in the Sports Bar on the Fan Rochester. Mike, when are you on the network this week? When can we check out more of your work?
Yeah, you could catch me tomorrow on NFL Network on Fantasy Live, Fridays as well. Any podcast with fantasy on the NFL Network, you can find me there, and then also Rotoballer and Florio's Football Show. But if you want it all in one place, just follow me on Twitter or Instagram at Michael F. Florio.
Yes, and Michael, I always appreciated your Mets takes there, too, from the West Coast there, bud. So that was I'm okay with everything, by the way. I'm not angry. I'm not upset. This team went further than I ever could have imagined.
I agree. It's so much different than like 2015 or 06, 07, 08, where it felt like they had the team and they didn't get the most out of it. This feels like they got way more out of this roster than they should have. I'm not sad that they lost. I'm just sad that the fun is over.
Well said. Michael, looking forward to it. Good luck in your leagues this week. Thank you for all your advice.
Thank you, and go Bills.
Michael F. Florio, NFL Network, stopping by the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia as we get ready for happy hour. We have time for your calls at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. We should also play who's hot and who's cold in fantasy football.
Yeah, who's hot in fantasy football? I'm going to go with a receiver that got off to a little bit of a slow start. Touchdowns in each of the last 4 weeks. I don't see any reason why Amon-Ra St. Brown will not slow up. And who's cold in fantasy football? You tell me what happens now with this Tampa Bay passing attack. They almost have to do something. So I am not so confident when the two top receivers go out due to injury.
Who's hot and who's cold in fantasy football is brought to you by Air-Quip Heating and Air Conditioning. It's fun and challenging to know when to start a player that's heating up or bench one who's cooling off. It's not fun to be too hot or too cold in your home or business. Make the best lineup call you can and call Air-Quip today. We'll get to happy hour next. Lots to recap from a conversation with Matt Perino of the Syracuse Post-Standard. We've got some NFL trade rumors to get to as well, and we'll talk some Bills Seahawks next on The Fan Rochester.
Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Buffalo Bills are 3-point favorites in Seattle. Head coach Sean McDermott knows, hey, when you're on the road, Bills have to get off to a better start.
I think just execute comes down to execution and some fundamentals, and then not beating ourselves with pre-snap penalties. Give all the opponents credit, but there's also an element for us of just execution more than anything.
Practice resumes tomorrow in Buffalo. Tonight in Buffalo, it's Sabres hockey. The Sabres hosting Dallas. Our coverage here on The Fan will begin at 7 o'clock. Every team in action tonight in the NHL with staggered start times every 15 minutes. The Amherst, they're back home tomorrow night. Cleveland coming to town. Opening night tonight in the NBA. 2 games, Boston hosting New York. The LA Lakers hosting Minnesota. Gene Battaglia in the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Hey, Seattle.
Go Hawks.
Touchdown, Seahawks!
This is the unique football setting in the NFL. Secondly, they have a really good group of skill guys. Their seasons is pretty simple. They hold the team to 20 or less, they win. Team scores more than 20, they lose. So that's the goal for the Bills. You got to put up points against Seattle. The good news is their defense is atrocious.
This probably is going to be the second best rushing offense they're going to play all season, but I think they're catching him at the right time.
Mike Danger.
I am concerned about the run defense of the Buffalo Bills, and the points you bring up on Walker and on Charbonnet are valid, and it makes me nervous about the game on Sunday.
Gene Battaglia.
It was just a static start, and that's one of the top storylines, right? How do you get off to a better start? Any theories as to why this has been kind of a recurring issue?
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Welcome to Happy Hour. You're back in the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us. It's a Tuesday, but it's not a sleepy Tuesday. Like, I think a lot of times people view Tuesday as like the actual worst day of the week. Like they despise Tuesday more than even a Monday. And I'm telling you, today, Tuesday feels pretty good.
Wow. Roll down the window. Like
step one.
Yeah, it's step one. Go outside. It's wonderful. Go walk the dog tonight, Danger. I mean, it's wonderful. Cherish these days. When you're looking at the headlines of today, I ask you this question. We try to do this in the sports bar. Just don't look at the headline. Try to figure out the agenda, or try to figure out who is whispering in the ear of Schefter or Rappaport or whoever it may be. Cooper Kupp on the trade block. I didn't know like the Rams were this down and out franchise that needs to kind of blow everything up. I thought that, hey, once you get Puka Nacua back and you get Cooper Kupp all healthy and you have one more year, maybe 2 out of Stafford, why would they? Where is this coming from? What is the agenda on
And
this?
there's another one that says that they're exploring a trade of Stafford to the Vikings, which when I saw that, I'm like, no, I don't know that I believe that report, and I don't really know what the agenda would be behind that report, why the Rams would feel like that's a necessary move to make with the team that they're playing on Thursday. And then I start to think to myself, oh, well, maybe all of this talk is just to drum up a little bit more enthusiasm for the start of Week 8 on Thursday night, a game in L.A. where the Vikings are coming to town, and Sam Darnold returns to Southern California where he played his college ball, and the Rams are struggling this year. Cooper Kupp is coming back, it would seem, for Thursday night's game, but is he 100%? And a lot of experts, injury experts, are saying, yeah, he might be back, but he is not 100%.
Yeah, and I look at this, and we could say, hey, the AFC East is the worst division in football. I'd listen to that, but I would also point out that, hey, the NFC West, they don't have a team like Buffalo at the top. They have Seattle, and going on the road to Seattle is going to be very tough, but the Rams are only a game and a half out. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's just as simple as, hey, we've reached the time of year where we've reached the sports equinox. Yeah, this is the best, right? We've got all 4 major sports Monday night. And yeah, it's just glorious. It's a buffet here. We can just eat everything up. And, well, Rams and Vikings, normally we got a lot of other things. Well, yeah, I think that is a game I want to pay attention to Thursday night. And not because of the Cooper Kupp rumors here.
I mean, and if you're in L.A., and the big story in L.A. is going to be LeBron and Bronny tonight.
It always is. The Rams made the Super Bowl. Not kidding you. Remember we talked to Eric Williams from Fox?
It wasn't a big deal.
No, like, okay, the Rams are playing in a Super Bowl at home. No, the Lakers are the lead story.
The Dodgers are in the World Series.
Right. Yeah, like.
We have to do something. We have to do something to get some attention, to get some shine on this stadium.
You know what's funny? There was a game last night we haven't even brought up. We can have
the Chargers.
Half of us didn't watch it. Like, oh yeah, whatever. The Chargers lost.
I watched it. It was not an entertaining game. The Chargers offensively are missing something, and they're missing skill position players. They don't really have a lot of talent at their skill positions. Dobbins is a nice story, but I would say that if you're paying what you're paying to Justin Herbert, you need Justin Herbert to make some of these guys a little bit better.
But is he healthy? I'm wondering that when I'm watching some of these throws. I'm like,
Yeah, well, I guess to bring it back to Kupp, that's my question with Kupp. Is Kupp healthy? Are they trying to get a second-round pick for damaged goods? Are the Rams indeed the ones putting that out there, trying to get something of value from a player who's probably never going to be what he was in that offense, and also oft injured now? I mean, I want to say he's only played 2 full seasons his entire career. Well,
and you could say if it's a team that is 2-4 and they're being realistic with themselves, why not just kind of cut bait? The report here is that, wait a second, the Rams are willing to eat a lot of the contract. They're trying to buy a second-round pick, essentially.
Yeah.
And, in the NFL media machine, ... Should my favorite team be in on Cooper Kupp? I'm going to plant my flag right here. No. You have a guy named Khalil Shakir. Matt Perino was very diplomatic when he joined us earlier today, and he said, well, maybe it could work, and never rule it out. And certainly, Brandon Beane, never rule it out. But I really think the makeup of the Bills' wide receiver room is good. But then we bring in another factor here. I can't say the word I really want to say, block. I'll just clean it up. Do you block Kansas City here? Because honestly,
do you jock block Kansas City?
Thank you.
Yeah. We do it all the time in fantasy football. This is reality. And I know that Brandon Beane would say that they're never worried about what another team is going to do, and you can't worry about that. If Kansas City were to get Cooper Kupp, right, everybody's jumping from buildings, right? Like, oh my God, why of all teams? And look, and they're not the only team that needs the services of a guy like Cooper Kupp. I mean, if you're in Tampa Bay right now, if you're Baker Mayfield, you're jumping on desks saying, get me Cooper Kupp, because I don't have Godwin for the rest of the year, and I don't know how this offense goes without Evans, without Godwin. He's not going to look like this. That's not going to look like the same offense.
Well, Baker Mayfield had one magical game with Cooper Kupp.
That's right.
Baker Mayfield, the Ram. That really
Cooper Kupp resuscitated the career of Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, you could make an argument that we put him in the Commanders' offense, put him in any team that is contending right now. It also is a byproduct of, hey, the NFL trade deadline is coming up, and, 2 of the top receivers are off the market. Deontay Johnson's not going to – who else at the receiver position right now will be made available? And I'm looking around. I don't know the answer to that.
If you're the Steelers, you're very interested in what the Rams are selling.
The Steelers look different with Russell Wilson that second half. I watched a little bit of it. Yeah, it's
good players make good teams great teams, right? Like you hope that that's what the Bills have done with Amari Cooper, and it feels like after one game that you're going to get that out of Amari Cooper. And I would say that if you're a team, any team, and you hear Cooper Kupp, your ears should perk up, and you should consider the idea of giving them a second-round draft pick for his services, assuming that he's healthy. And that's my big thing. My big if is I don't know how healthy he is. He's going to come back on Thursday night and not look like Cooper Kupp because he's not 100%.
Well, if they start targeting him right off the bat, like how the Bills did in a preseason game,
they showcase him.
Yeah, it's the showcase here for Cooper Kupp.
Well, that's certainly one story that is floating around the NFL today. That other report about Stafford and the Vikings, and it just I'm trying to make sense of it. I can't make sense of it.
When I saw that, because we had an injury scare with Sam Darnold earlier in the season. This was after the Houston win where he got an MRI. You're like, Well, that would end things quickly for Minnesota if they lost their top 2 quarterbacks. And when I heard that rumor, and again, I don't know anybody reputable saying this, but this is what's floating around here. Okay, maybe is there something going on in Minnesota? The answer I can tell you right now is no. As far as we know, Sam Darnold's just fine. He's just coming off a loss here. Why would you do something like that with Minnesota? It would make no sense.
And you have your quarterback of the future, who's J.J. McCarthy, and he'll be there next year. I don't understand that report at all, and why that report is out there, other than, hey, we're trying to grab headlines in a market that right now is infatuated with its baseball team and the start of a new basketball season.
You're not going to change that, though. Like, your team could literally go to the Super Bowl, actually host the Super Bowl, and you're still not the top story.
Yeah, it's crazy. From last night, the Ravens, man. Ooh, the Ravens. The Ravens are a problem. We knew it from a couple of weeks ago with the Bills, but the Ravens are a problem.
Let me say this, okay, because we can start looking at seeding. The Bills are not going to ever admit this, but let's be honest. The division's pretty much theirs, right? Yes, we're all nodding. I would rather be the 4 seed and potentially face Kansas City on the road in the divisional round than face the 2nd seed, potentially in Baltimore in the divisional round. What makes anybody think that, hey, second time around, we're going to figure this out? Really? When did you figure it out when you were going to Tennessee all those years with Derrick Henry? And watching that game last night, there was one little nugget there that Joe Buck shared in his sit-down with Derrick Henry. How do you watch film? What are you looking for? He's not looking at alignments. He's looking at effort level. He can tell if he's going to have a good game based on the effort level of the defense. My mind automatically jumps to Buffalo because if there has been one player other than Tom Brady, okay, but post-Tom Brady certainly too, it's been Derrick Henry. Like, the Bills' defense isn't built for that. The Bills' defense, which I can't fault, it's a passing league, Danger. It's a league where you don't want anything over the top. And it's rare when you saw in Houston, hey, there goes Nico Collins. That hardly ever happens because you always play the safeties. The safeties are way back. And when you do that, you're inviting Derrick Henry to run all over the place on you. I am fearful of Baltimore. Baltimore scares me way more than an undefeated Kansas City team.
Yeah, I mean, Henry is one element, and then you factor in that Lamar Jackson right now, he's playing the best football of his career. And I know that it matters most. In January, he could win his 3rd MVP. He's playing like an MVP right now. And if you were to ask me, I'd say right now, he is the MVP of the league, even though he's won it twice already. The only other name that I can think of that comes close and might create a problem if we were voting today is Jared Goff. Those are the 2 guys. So we had Nate Geary on with us yesterday, mentioning Josh Allen should be at the top of that list, and I'll listen to that. But after what I saw last night out of Lamar Jackson, oh boy, 5 touchdowns, a near perfect passer rating, and just complete command.
I think part of this is the way McDermott is coaching the Bills up, because I think it's also kind of mirroring one of these other storylines that we're going to hear a lot about tomorrow. Slow starts. How do we fix it? And Brady wants to establish this run. You don't see the Bills coming out and flinging it all over the place that maybe they should. They did that in the Miami game, and I'll give them credit. They were very aggressive in that game. In fact, Jacksonville too. And then we've seen them kind of soft pedal when they went on the road, and we saw that against Tennessee. Do they reverse course against a Seattle defense that right now it's a little spotty in Seattle?
Yeah, I don't really buy into McDermott being conservative. I think he's been more aggressive. And I think, Brady being aggressive is a function of McDermott saying go for it here or be more aggressive, letting him kind of dictate and letting Josh kind of have a say as to what direction they need to go offensively. I'm concerned with the slow starts, but I'm more concerned with the outcome when it's all said and done. You don't have to apologize for a win. We're talking about a head coach who's won a lot of football games, and I'm as critical of Sean McDermott as a lot of you are, and a defense that, if you've been in it, you really don't give up those big plays, and you are kind of bend but don't break, but you win a lot of football games, and you're a good defense. I'm concerned about the injuries at linebacker.
Yeah, that's it to me. Like if you see Danger walking around his neighborhood, or if I'm out at trivia night, like, hey, what do you think the Bills are going to do against Seattle? I'm going to give you my answer. I don't know. Honestly, I want to get more data. I want to hear more things. I want to talk to smart people. I don't know to this point enough about Seattle, and I don't know about the Bills heading into this game. If it ends up being Joe Andreessen on the inside and Valen Spector on the outside, I know Joe Andreessen is a really fun story. I know our friends, our neighbors to the west, love this guy. Against Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet? Really? Really? Like that alone would make me to pick Seattle. Now, maybe you get Dorian Williams back and Spector in. I think you can get by with this. Matt Marino also brought up an interesting point last time. When the Bills face a quarterback that doesn't see this defense too often, sometimes it takes the quarterback a little bit to dial in. Geno Smith, hey, he's got the most passing yards entering last night. I didn't see any change, but that was a little surprising for me to learn that. And will Geno Smith be able to recognize some of the things that Bobby Babbage is going to try to bait him into? Yeah,
well, we'll have the action for you come Sunday afternoon. Our pregame coverage gets underway right around 12 noon. You're home with the Buffalo Bills. We'll have all your game action here in the late window there Sunday afternoon. So if you're out driving around or if you're tuning us in, feel free. We will have that for you and everything leading up to it as well. I just saw this cross my feed, and I think it's worth bringing up because it's Bills-related, Gino, that Andre Reed and Buffalo-born actor Chad Michael Murray have signed on as executive producers for the forthcoming docu-series titled Just One Before I Die about the Buffalo Bills fan base.
Yeah, and it's reported by Variety. So that's why, all right, is there something now, this docuseries, is it going to be on Netflix or is it going to just be on some random website? I mean, what would get you to say, boy, I really want to tune in and see Pinto Ron or whatever? Honestly, does that excite, I'm being honest, does that excite anybody?
Yeah, I think it does. I think there'd be a lot of Bills fans that would want to see a docuseries called Just One Before I Die about themselves, about the struggles of their fandom and the struggles and the ups and the downs of being a fan of the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, what would it be? Yeah, back in 1991, he missed the kick. And what would it be?
Y'all watched The Four Falls and you loved how that came out, right? I mean, that brought emotion to you, brought tears to your eyes.
A quick story on this, because there's another thing that's related Hollywood, the Bills, to this. Do you ever, have you ever gone by and oh my gosh, I recognize that spot from a movie? Fisher played at Hilbert 2 weeks ago on our station, and Hilbert doesn't have a home field. They're playing at St. Francis High School. If you're in Buffalo, you know that. I had never been down this way by the lake, and I'm driving down this way. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the hotel in Buffalo 66. Oh my gosh, that was the strip club. That's the diner. All these landmarks. Buffalo 66 by Vincent Gallo, super dark movie. That's already been done by Hollywood. I'm sorry. You'd have to, that's a better version. And literally, the mother's crazy because of whatever happened way back when.
Are you comparing Buffalo 66 to a docuseries about Bills Mafia?
Have you seen Buffalo 66?
No.
Okay.
But, I mean, you're painting a dark picture. I don't know that that's what this would be.
It's from the viewpoint of why does this always happen to us in Buffalo? Yeah, it's not a family thing. It's a super dark kind of thing. And Vince Gallo, not a good guy, by the way.
I don't know. I feel like a lot of Bills fans would be interested in seeing something that Andre Reed is putting his stamp on. If I would imagine that if you like the Four Falls, the 30 for 30, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have as much skin in the game as all y'all do as Bills fans, but I got emotional watching that because I remember those teams and I remember the disappointment of 4 straight Super Bowls and not getting one. And I imagine that will be a part of what this docuseries is about. The downfall after that, the drought era, the fan base, what makes the fan base unique, what makes us great. Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what
That's-
just
well,
one before I die is going to look like.
That's what my father says. I'm like, no, that's a little morbid, Dad. Come on.
Just one before I die.
Well, after 13 seconds, I'm like, oh, that was the one. But for your old man, like, oh, hey, the Cubs won. Like, you had that. I remember you like you like the Cubs, but your old man was really.
Well, my old man he introduced me to it. I mean,
Yeah.
he took me to my first ball game, and you have those great memories from when you're a kid, and you can't let those go. I don't know. I think that's kind of exciting. I'm curious to see where it ends up, and truthfully, I haven't read the article attached to the headline, so I should probably look to see, like, where is this going to stream? Is it going to stream? Is it where, how are we going to be able to consume this when it's actually done? But you've got a couple of big names in Andre Reed and Chad Michael Murray involved. So let's keep tabs on that.
Maybe we get Andre Reed back on the show. It's going to be like, hey, we got this coming up here. So.
Oh yeah, he'll come on and promote his wares for sure. I think that's exciting. All right, we've got to get to a round of shots next on the Fan.
What you watching, everybody, tonight? NHL wall to wall, or Knicks Celtics, or LeBron Fest? Yeah, busy night here in sports.
Don't be sarcastic, man. I want you to appreciate LeBron because he's not going to play forever. So every game, every breath he takes, I want you to appreciate him.
Time out. You started that with, I don't want you being sarcastic. The two headaches for Rob Manfred. We've got an update on the A's in Sacramento. And what's going on with the Tampa Bay Rays and where they may be playing. And look, don't kick a man while he's down, especially if he's your ex-husband. I don't think that's this case, but of course somebody couldn't resist not commenting.
No, so somebody got petty and kicked somebody while they're down. Okay, we'll get into that more next. A round of shots coming up. Don't forget about last call. Our lines are open at 866-4FAN 585-866-4326.
update.
Back to the West Coast for the Buffalo Bills this week. They're 3-point favorites in Seattle. Head coach Sean McDermott on the opponents.
We have a ton of respect for the Seahawks and coach and what they've done out there and players that they have. And we're going out to the Northwest, and we better be ready and have a great week of practice because they're a really good football team and well coached.
Practice resumes tomorrow for the Bills. Sabres tonight here on The Fan. Sabres hosting Dallas. Our coverage will begin at 7 o'clock. The Amherst tomorrow hosting Cleveland. Opening night tonight in the NBA, 2 games, Boston hosting New York, the Lakers hosting Minnesota. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com, where today you can get a $50 certificate for half price to Lasertron in Henrietta. For this and other great deals, log on to GetMyPerks.com today. Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Bone-crunching hits, backboard-shattering dunks, bat flips, and hat tricks. 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Happy Hour continues on The Fan. Welcome into the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia serving up a round of shots.
I love this idea, but how can you make this idea better for the NHL? I'm going to give you my way tonight. Hey, let's take center stage. Let's show you what our sport is all about. Every team is playing. All 16 games tonight, 32 teams all playing, all with staggered start times. So you can watch wall to wall. You don't have to wait for intermission. Here's how you make it better, Danger. Why not do this on the first Sunday where we don't have the NFL? I'm not talking about the Pro Bowl or anything. Like, shouldn't this be the way, too? Like, you're going to start going from noon up until 8 o'clock at night.
I understand that, and that does make sense. I kind of like that the NHL is trying to steal some shine away from the NBA's opening night.
Well, and I also want to point out who's behind this. This is
ESPN.
It's their triple header, and the NBA, was grinding on ESPN the last negotiations, and this was ESPN last year saying, you know what, we do have an alternative for programming here. The NBA, we'll get to that in a second. As far as the NHL tonight, it starts coming up top of the hour, 6 o'clock, Capitals and Flyers. The last game will have the puck drop on ESPN, Kings in Vegas, 11 o'clock Eastern. Thumbs up to anybody who's going to stay up that late tonight. As we mentioned in the update, Sabres and Stars tonight on MSG. Buffalo looking to make it 2 in a row. Our coverage will begin at 7 o'clock.
All right, we're looking forward to that. I mean, I know that hockey is not everybody's brand of vodka. I'm into it. And don't worry, I'll watch so you don't have to.
Well, I will watch Celtics Knicks, although I'm kind of I do think this is going to be a Celtic love-in tonight. They're going to raise the banner. They are the defending champs. Just 2 games on TNT tonight. That's going to be followed up by the Lakers opening against the Timberwolves. In attendance tonight will be Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey Sr. to watch LeBron and Bronny play together. The difference here being that, well, the baseball son was actually a Hall of Famer and could actually play.
Yeah, I just think, look, you have to appreciate everything that's going to happen here tonight with the Lakers, okay? This is LeBron James playing with his son. This is what we all wanted. This is what we all asked for. We've all been waiting for this moment. So just appreciate him because he's not going to play forever. You might not like him, okay? But you have to understand. You have to understand that you're going to appreciate him. His words.
We have more games tomorrow night, and this makes my head explode. I wonder what they're saying in Philadelphia today. So the Sixers are going to open up against Milwaukee. Ruled out for this game already, Joel Embiid and Paul George. Now, George, come to find out, he hyperextended his left knee in a preseason game against Atlanta last week. No structural damage. They're just saying it's a bone bruise for Paul George. They're going to keep him out. Embiid is, I'm reading the story, is still recovering from tearing meniscus in his left knee in January 2024. While the injury was surgically repaired, Embiid was able to return to action in April. Yeah. Head coach Nick Nurse said his team is being careful with their big man, especially given his action for Team USA.
I was going to say, were they being careful with him this summer, or is this just what is he ramping? What does he need to ramp up from? I don't understand.
Dear NBA, can I go on my soapbox here for just a second?
Please do.
I'm going to give you a warning. I'm pointing at the camera right now, the pointer in the face. At some point, I want to say it was like probably with Jordan winning 6 championships and then baseball going on a strike, the NBA passed up Major League Baseball as the second most popular sport in this country. Some may debate that, but I could point you to the numbers. You better be careful if you're the NBA and you keep pulling this nonsense because we're getting Yankees, Dodgers, and you have a Mets fan base that's energized. You have a lot of young talent in baseball. I don't think baseball is going to all of a sudden become what it was years ago, but for the NBA, it's like, sooner or later, like if you're in Philadelphia, like what are we even doing here? You can play in the Olympics, but you can't even show up on opening night. It's opening night. Play on opening night.
If you missed it earlier, I gave my Charmin League power rankings. I know, shocking. The NBA is number 1. It's soft.
You're doing a disservice to Charmin.
They don't give a crap about the fans. It's clear. And to bring it back around, we were trying to figure out earlier, like, when did this start in the NBA? When did this become a thing where star players can just say, yeah, nah, I need a little bit more time. I'm not ready to go. I bring it back to LeBron. I bring it back to the decision. I feel like the decision opened up the door. The floodgates were smashed down to this league becoming a players' league, and the players call the shots. And there's nothing wrong with that if you consider that it's the fans that want to see you, that make it all available, make it all possible for you, that are losing out when you say, nah, I'm going to need a little bit more time. Zion needs to be Zion before I can go out there and be the best Zion I can possibly be.
I don't know when it became this, oh my gosh, we're playing back-to-back nights. In the NFL, going from a Sunday to a Thursday, as the Rams and Vikings will be doing, that's tough.
Mm-hmm.
The NBA is not that physical. It's physical, but it's not NFL physical. Get your butts out there. I blame Greg Popovich. Nobody checked that guy. They had the opportunity years ago. He figured out, what does it matter if we're the 2 seed, the 3 seed, the 4 seed? Let's just kind of like, hey, you're feeling a little tired, take the night off there. And you're going on the road, so what? Who cares if this is the only time that fans might see Tim Duncan? I mean, Greg Pop and David Stern never checked him on that.
Well, nobody's checking this guy, and it's been this way in the NBA for a long time.
Listen, you can love me, and I know some of you hate me as well. But the one thing you will always do is respect me and appreciate the way I approach the game and what I've given to this game. Thank you.
So bad, so awkward, and just like there are people in this, you could just tell, like, do we have to applaud for what he's saying? Ugh, okay, fine.
I hear, whenever I hear that, I hear Cartman, you will respect my authority.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. Look, I don't hate the guy's game, right? At worst, he's the second best player of all time. So you can't take that away from him. But man, just the way he's handled things, even things like that, I'm like, ugh.
Oh, there's going to be some pick and roll that he and his son will do tonight.
That's
and everybody
cute. I hope Minnesota wins by 30.
This is also part of the problem, too. Showcasing your top teams. And look, the Knicks, sure, they're Boston. Of course, they're the defending champs. You have Dallas is actually the defending champ. Are they in that? No. No. What about Denver, who won the champion? No. What about Oklahoma City? There are so many other teams that you could see tonight because it's the Lakers and LeBron. Let's put this on. All right. Sorry.
Hey, it's NBA opening night, everybody.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the NBA.
Welcome back to the sports bar. The Oakland A's, check that. The A's will be playing in Sacramento this season. Also, I don't even know what they're going to be called this year because I was looking at the Mets schedule, and I'm like, well, this is weird. This is from baseball. They misspelled Atlanta. They spelled it ATH, and then I realized, no, that's not Atlanta misspelled.
The Athletics.
Athletics.
Yeah.
Are they just going to be the Athletics? Like they're not going to put Sacramento on, or they're going to put Vegas on? They can't put Vegas on because the financing isn't done. So are you going to still call them Oakland, or are you going to call them, like, I don't know, but they are going to be playing in Sacramento this year because the MLBPA did sign off on it. But what did it take? No artificial turf, apparently. All games will be played on grass. Why was even turf a consideration? Apparently the Giants AAA team is still going to be playing there. Danger, when the Bisons were in Buffalo, and the Blue Jays had to come that year. That was difficult, but at least there was a circumstance. What are we even doing? How are you going to maintain a grass field? How is that going to work? But in Sacramento, artificial turf doesn't work either because it does go to triple digits. The players would have broiled on the turf. Now it's just the fans in the stands are going to broil.
I saw something cross my feed earlier from an account called Last Dive Bar. I don't know anything about this, but I imagine that they're in the Bay Area. And it's an image of a baseball park. And it's captioned, "Welcome to John Fisher Sucks Park, the most intimate ballpark in all of Major League Baseball, featuring real grass because John Fisher loves the players. It's the only park where a billionaire ain't paying for S. Hashtag FJF." And the picture is of a beat up, it looks like a softball field, but it's got the stadium out, and it says John Fisher Sucks Park. It's a funny image with the burnt grass in the outfield. It just looks like a complete dump.
Yeah, if you're going to be playing baseball every day in Sacramento, I mean, you could have the sod god. Remember that guy? It's not going to work. I want the world to kind of burn up. Not literally, but I want – you get what I'm saying. Any shame, disgrace that can come John Fisher's way, sign me up. Meanwhile, the plan for the Tampa Bay Rays is not to leave the market this year. This is after their roof was shredded by Hurricane Milton. Commissioner Rob Manfred went on the Variety podcast and said he would like the team to play in that market this year. There's only one stadium that hosts a major league team in spring training that does not have a minor league team that's playing at the same time. That would be the Orioles Stadium in Sarasota. That is 55 miles south of St. Pete.
I think that would probably be their best course of action, right? All the other options would just be a disaster for any quote-unquote fans of the Tampa Bay Rays.
I would think that if you could do like two stadiums, maybe say Legends Field, and like kind of piecemeal it that way together. But as you know, Danger, what happens every day in the Bay Area?
It rains.
And there's also lightning. Yeah. You can deal with rain, but lightning is I don't know how that is all going to work. What a mess there in Tampa Bay. That's what Manfred says, but we'll see. Finally, Jay Cutler, if you missed this from Friday, was arrested for DUI last week. Not good.
Not extreme DUI. That honor goes to Eddie Lacy in Arizona. In Arizona, they like to hand out extreme DUI.
Not your father's DUI. Yeah. He was 4 times the legal limit.
Yikes.
Of course, Cutler's ex-wife had to comment on this. Kristen Cavallari couldn't leave well enough alone. After all, they shared 3 children. Of course, I wish Jay the best and hope he gets the help he needs. But that's the only thing I'm going to be saying about it publicly.
Yeah, I don't know. Who would have predicted that she would have had something to say on this or weigh in on this?
So have you thought about when you do get bored what you're going to do?
Yeah, no.
Okay, well, maybe you should.
I'm not really looking to do a lot of work right now. I'm looking to do the exact opposite of that.
It's that made me kind of appreciate Jay Cutler. Like, he's got this office space mentality about him. Like, I'm done playing football. I'm not really looking to do work. I'm kind of looking to do the opposite of a lot of work right now. And he's got his wife nagging him to get up and get out and do some stuff.
I know you're a big Jay Cutler fan, and I finally figured this out. I can't forgive him because he's responsible for introducing us to Kristen Cavallari. Kristen Cavallari would not be this influencer had she not been married to an NFL quarterback.
Well, she was popular from an MTV show that she was on. She was on was it The Hills, maybe? Was the OC? The OC was a show. The Hills was on MTV. I think she was on The Hills, and that was what made her popular.
She would have faded away.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right, Gino. But yeah, shocking that she would weigh in on this. Not shocking at all. Quick break. We'll come back, close up shop, let you know who's stopping by the sports bar tomorrow on The Fan.
Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Fun show this afternoon, and if you missed any of it, we'll get it up and on demand for you wherever you get your podcast. That includes the free-to-download Odyssey app, AUDACY, our proud home. And if you missed Michael F. Florio with his Week 8 waiver wire report, if you missed Rochester Americans head coach Michael Leone or Matt Perino covering the Buffalo Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard, you'll get all of those conversations up and available for you. That's wherever you get your podcasts. Just search out the Sports Bar.
Oh.
I know.
No,
Sorry, bud.
Yeah.
It's
how you know
closing
it's a good
time.
show. It's like,
It's
sorry.
closing time. It goes by quick. Tomorrow, PJ Glasser, the host of Send It In on the BetQL Network, stops by. We'll get his favorite plays for this weekend's action in college and pro football. Our Odyssey Sports Betting Insider, PJ Glasser, Insider Calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. All right, so we've got the NBA season getting underway tonight. We've got no shortage of NHL action. We've got the Buffalo Sabres on the Fan Rochester hosting the Dallas Stars. That action starts at 7. But listen anyways. Till then, we'll give you the JR Sport Brief. He's on the way next. Enjoy your night. We're back tomorrow starting at 3 o'clock with a brand new episode of The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Fan Rochester.